My parents are demanding that I give over my house to my little sister, as they're basically saying that she deserves it more, despite the fact that my sister literally makes over $100,000 a year. But now that they're visiting me for Christmas, I'm honestly convinced that they're going to try and convince me to sell the house to my sister. And at this point, I am so frustrated that I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my husband and I really lucked out during COVID, and we actually bought a fixer-upper in New York City with a 3% mortgage rate. My mom actually almost torpedoed this deal for us by calling the seller's agent and yelling at him not to sell us the house and that he was ruining our life. Now, this was crazy, especially because we were buying with all of our own money. So why my mom thought that she could go behind our backs and yell at the real estate agent just to destroy the sale is crazy, but this is basically my mom. She works every holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, and more so, we can't even celebrate holidays or special occasions together, all because of her schedule. Or it's just always a pain in the butt to organize. And she doesn't even get holiday pay or need the money. She also gets bitter and sad too if we don't go out of our way to figure stuff out around her terrible schedule. She really is just an awful, immature, and impossible person. And she's like this all the time. She has always been more like a child than my mom. And she's been like this ever since I was 10 years old or even younger. Anyways, we basically lucked out on this New York City house. And this was our dream house, but we had to leave this year for another country. My little sister, on the other hand, had been living with my parents in their apartment this entire time. And she's been complaining about how bad it was for her mental health. So I figured that maybe this would be a great opportunity for her just to get some space by renting out our really nice home at a really big discount. We just started charging her utilities, and we're losing more than $1,000 per month subsidizing the difference between her rent and our mortgage. And if we wanted to officially rent out our home on the market, we would actually make over $1,000 a month. We're not rich enough to subsidize this $1,000 a month difference for a long time, so we told her that if she can't afford to pay the full cost of the mortgage, we can't afford to subsidize it, and she would have to move out. And she basically said that we'd be making her homeless, despite the fact that she can always move back in with my parents. And also more to the fact that she can definitely afford the full cost of the mortgage too. So she basically moved into our very nice life right where we left off. She was also driving our brand new electric SUV that we actually just sold to her at a deep discount as well. We have solar panels, so the utilities aren't even an issue. We renovated and also upgraded everything, so almost everything's practically new and sparkly. We're talking a beautiful kitchen and my brand new TV with its equally expensive surround sound system, PlayStation 5, and electric leather recliner setup. But my mom told me that my little sister thought it was very unfair that she's basically paying our mortgage and that she gets nothing in return. And my mom basically started telling me that I should sell my little sister our New York City house with its 3% mortgage rate at a deep discount, which also didn't make sense to me because my little sister literally refuses to pay it. And I guess they want us to do this because we're about to buy a property here in our new country, and it basically comes with 2 homes and a tiny house. So I guess maybe to my mom, I have 3.5 houses and my sister has 0. So in her mind, I maybe need to balance the scales or some crap like that. Now, my friend called me a doormat because we've both been tortured all our lives to be good Asian daughters. So if I was single, I guess sure. I honestly wouldn't have that much of an issue with sharing the wealth potentially. Even my husband is supposedly down for family socialism, but we have a few problems. Number 1, the socialism in our family always goes one way. Our families only believe in taking from us and giving absolutely nothing in return. Secondly, we have a son and we're not that rich, so our New York City home with its 3% mortgage will basically be his inheritance. So my mom wants me to give away my son's inheritance for my little sister for no reason. Third, my little sister is not even poor. She is younger than me, which is why she isn't as rich, but she makes $100,000 a year, and her future fiance will probably also make $100,000 a year. At this rate, they will easily be making more than us in a few years to easily save up and buy their own house. So I don't understand why my mom thinks that me selling my house to my little sister is the solution here. Also, when I told my little sister that she couldn't subsidize her low rent forever, she legit told me to get a job instead of increasing the rent on her. When I also asked her if she could temporarily help house one of my friends who was struggling, she said that she's not a charity and that my friend can go to the New York City homeless shelter. But the house has plenty of empty rooms, and it's also got a fully finished basement with its own entrance, so my little sister wouldn't even have to see my friend at all. Not only that, but basically, my mom has been comparing my little sister and I her entire life, saying stuff like, well, why can't you be more like your smarter and more successful sister? So I'm pretty sure my little sister kind of low-key hates me. She actually hates me when I'm nice to her, even though she whines nonstop for it, because it makes her feel even more insecure. And the whole reason my little sister is so crazy about wanting to be a homeowner is all because of my mom. But it's my God, you're 25 years old, chill out. You can save up and buy a house when you're older like a normal person. But I never expected her to be going after my house. Like, this is a whole new line that has been crossed. And I'm honestly afraid that they're gonna start like scheming for a way to take my house right now. Like, my parents are straight up scheming with my little sister's future fiance's parents behind our backs right now for a way to convince me to sell them my house. My mom basically talked about how we're all like one big family in the same conversation. And when I tried to talk to my little sister about this so I could shut this crap down, she said she's too busy because she has a final next week because she's in grad school. And then she called me with a question about buying something on Cyber Monday. So she has time and money to shop on Cyber Monday, but not to talk to me about this crap. And I've been really nice to her because she will legitimately run out of her car or the house whenever I ask a basic question. She had a psychotic breakdown a few years ago by overdosing on these gummies, if you know what I mean, and she got over it by pretending it never happened. And basically, whenever I confront her about anything, she will literally just run away. And no, I'm not kidding. So does anyone else have a train wreck of a family like mine? And do they have any tips on ways to like navigate this toxic family relationship? I actually do worry about my parents spending time with my son too because they're so toxic. I also bought my parents multi-$1,000 plane tickets to come and visit us for Christmas as well. And I tried to reschedule because I did not want to see them after this, but I'm pretty sure they want to try and come and convince me about this garbage. And trust me, there's even more to this than what I'm letting on, but I'm pretty sure this is more than long enough. So if anyone has any tips on how to make the peace with my family, please let me know, because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, your mom and your sister are super selfish, dude. Like, these people don't care about you at all. They see this big house in New York City that you got on a really good deal, and the only thing your mom is thinking about is, oh, give it to your sister right now. She deserves this. But it's like, bro, why do I have to give up my house for my sister when she could easily buy one herself? Like, this is absolutely not your problem. These people are so weird. So first of all, like, if I was in your shoes, I would be like, okay, little sister, it's time for you to move out. I've clearly thrown you a bone way too many times, and now you're taking advantage of that and trying to like demand I give over my house. So it's time for you to go so I can rent this out to anybody else. Because holy crap, there is a problem across the board in this situation. The sister's trying to act like, oh, I'm gonna be homeless. The parents are trying to act like, oh, it's your family, you've gotta do this. Meanwhile, you're sitting there like, wait a second, this is my property. I can do whatever I want with it, people. Like, what's the problem here? So if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely start creating distance between these people because this sounds obnoxious. I would hate having to put up with this on a daily basis, especially when they're so wrapped up in your business. Like, dude, get a life. Because I really think they're overstepping your boundaries, and that is absolutely not okay. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I got the chance at getting some petty revenge by giving my friend a taste of her own medicine. And now, ironically enough, she's mad at me, even though I did the exact same thing she's been doing for months at a time. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend, who I will call Heather, has this thing where she literally cancels plans right before we're supposed to meet up. Like, I'm talking 30 minutes before, sometimes even less. And this is not like a once or twice kind of thing. This has happened probably 6 or 7 times in the last few months. The excuses are always the same. I'm so tired, I just can't do it. Oh, I'm sorry, something came up. I'm not really feeling up to it today. And trust me, I get it. Sometimes stuff happens. But then I'll see her Instagram stories later that same night, and she's out at dinner with other people or at some party. So clearly she wasn't too tired. Last month, I drove 25 minutes to meet her for coffee, and she texted me when I was literally in the parking lot saying, oh, I wasn't feeling great, saying that she had to cancel. But it's like, dude, I was already there. And then that evening, she posted a photo at Target with her sister. Now, I stopped suggesting plans, but she kept reaching out, wanting to hang out. So I started saying yes and then canceling last minute, using her exact same excuses. Literally verbatim. Oh, sorry, I can't do it today. I just can't make it. Oh, something came up. I'm not really feeling it today. And you know what? I did this like 3 or 4 times over a few weeks. But yesterday, she finally texted me all pissed off. She said it was really rude and inconsiderate to keep canceling on her, and how she makes time in her schedule for me. But I said to her, yeah, it is rude, isn't it? Because that's exactly what you've been doing to me for months. Okay, honestly, I love this story because, dude, some people need this. They need to see exactly how entitled they're being and how rude they're being to you by having their own tactics used against them. And from the sounds of it, Heather is one of those people. Like, she really needed to be confronted with this in this way, because this kind of behavior is the way you lose friends very quickly. And I know if I was in the original poster shoes, I would have a lot less patience and probably kick her to the curb a long time ago. My entitled neighbor's grocery deliveries keep blocking my driveway, and it's getting to the point where I literally can't even live my life anymore because it's happening so often. And right now, I honestly don't know what to do about it. Here's what's going on. Okay, for starters, I live on a street with houses that all have driveways. My neighbor across the street gets grocery delivery constantly, and we're talking like 3 or 4 times a week and sometimes even more. Well, every single time, the delivery driver parks directly blocking my driveway. And this is not just partially blocking it, like completely across it. Plus, they're there for a while because she orders so much stuff. I've timed it before, and it's usually like 25 minutes while they unload everything. I've mentioned it to her probably like 4 or 5 times now, and the first couple of times I was nice about it. I would just be like, okay, hey, would you mind asking your delivery drivers not to block my driveway? And she would say, oh, I'm sorry, and then tell them to move. But guess what? They kept doing it. So I asked again, and she said to me, it's only like 10 minutes. It's not that big of a deal. Except it's not 10 minutes. It's closer to like half an hour. And also, it is a big deal because I can't leave my house. I suggested that she can meet them at the curb or like in front of her own house, just so they don't block mine. And when I said that, she acted like I was asking her to do something incredibly difficult. She then looked at me and said, oh, I can't control where they park. And it's like, yeah, actually you can. You can literally meet them outside and direct them where to park, or put it in the delivery instructions. Last week it happened again, and I needed to leave for an appointment. So I literally had to go out there and ask the driver to move myself. He was nice about it, but my neighbor came out and made this huge dramatic sigh like I was inconveniencing her. Later, she came over and said that I was being really uptight about this. She then said to me, you work from home anyway, so it's not like you need to leave during the day. First of all, how does she know my schedule? Second of all, even if I do work from home, that doesn't mean that she gets to block my driveway whenever she wants. I still have appointments and errands, and also it's my driveway, lady. I told her that, and she just rolled her eyes and said, whatever, I'll try to remember to tell them. Well, as you can probably guess, it happened again yesterday. The driver blocked my driveway for 30 minutes. I didn't have anywhere to go, but honestly, it's the principle of the matter at this point because this is getting incredibly frustrating. Okay, honestly, at this point, it might be time to go like over your neighbor's head and go straight to like the delivery driver's company or something like that. Like seriously, I would go to them and be like, dude, they are blocking my driveway every single day. Please do something about this because I'm gonna start towing cars if you don't, dude. And also, who in their right mind is getting deliveries 4 times a week? Like, what's going on right now? Especially groceries. Like, dude, are you eating all that in like a few days? Like, what's going on right now? What is she possibly buying that's like taking 30 minutes to deliver, dude? I don't know, that's super obnoxious, and I just can't stand neighbors who act like this, who are not only so inconsiderate of your needs, but also try to make it sound like it's your fault when you don't accommodate their idiocy. So yeah, this lady sucks, and hopefully you can get something done about this. Did I overreact by leaving early from our hotel visit when my boyfriend told my daughter that she has an ugly face? Because after he said that to my preschool kid, I literally was boiling with rage. But instead of yelling at him, I decided to leave to try and give myself some space. And I'm honestly not sure if this was a mistake or not because he's still incredibly pissed off. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I took my 2 young kids on a long weekend getaway after the Thanksgiving holiday. We've been together for almost 3 years, but we've only recently started to incorporate my kids more in our life together in a meaningful way. When buckling my preschool-age daughter in her car seat throughout the weekend, he would tell her, oh, you need to suck in your fat belly. And now my daughter's saying she has a fat belly, which I'm really not happy about. More importantly, on Sunday morning, at the end of our stay, my boyfriend leaned over and said something near my daughter's face, to which she replied, ew, something stinks, and covered her nose. I giggled and told my boyfriend, I think she's saying that you have morning breath. But that's when he looked back at her and said, well, you have an ugly face, and that's why you need to wear makeup. Now, when he said this, I was shocked and very upset. I then calmly packed up our things, and I told him that the kids and I would just grab breakfast on the drive home instead of staying and having breakfast with him. I didn't yell, I didn't cuss, I didn't argue or throw anything around while packing. Well, he's angry that I left without the 2 of us having a conversation first, whereas I feel that we could not have had a productive grown-up conversation with my kids in the same hotel room when I was upset as I was. While he did put a lot of effort into the trip, I felt he really crossed the line with that comment. It's one thing for him to make comments at me, but it's another to make them towards my baby. I've explained to him that I've told my daughter we are beautiful without makeup and only use it on occasion to feel fancy, and he had witnessed that interaction earlier in the weekend as we were getting ready. We had already planned to drive home separately, and we did not have any breakfast plans, so it's not like I left him hanging in limbo. We're about 24 hours past the event, and he still has not apologized. Instead, he's blaming me for leaving and overreacting due to my own insecurities. So am I the jerk for leaving early and being hurt by his joke? Because honestly, I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. No, that's really weird. You don't say that to a kid. You didn't do anything wrong. Like, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I probably would have left early too, especially considering the fact that, for one, your kids are there. So it makes sense that you didn't want to have like any kind of argument or like conversation when the kids are around. But also for me, I don't know if I could handle my anger at that moment. Like, I would be really pissed off. And if anything, I might say some things that I will absolutely regret later. So no, you didn't overreact. I think your boyfriend's being very rude here. And in my opinion, I think you did the right thing. My parents refused to reach out to me ever since I had a major surgery 10 days ago. And I'm honestly incredibly hurt by this, and I seriously just don't know what to do next. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I had a major surgery a little over a week ago after years of having health issues that I just couldn't solve. It had been scheduled for a couple of months ago, and I had to be rescheduled 12 hours out last month. So it wasn't really a surprise that it was happening. Now, I let everybody know what was going on, but neither of my parents, who, by the way, went through a long divorce and live in different states, bothered reaching out in the months, weeks, or days leading up to the operation. I actually didn't hear from either of them until I had woken up from anesthesia, and it was just like this generic, oh, I hope surgery went well from the both of them. I let it sit for a couple of days while I recovered from anesthesia, and then I sent both of them a text message saying that my feelings were hurt, that something could have gone wrong during surgery, and we simply never would have spoken again. And I just find that really upsetting. My mom didn't respond back for a week, but she finally did after I had to go to the emergency room for complications and reached out again. She said that she thinks about me every day and loves me, and she hates that I don't believe that. My dad responded and said that I was just looking for an excuse to be angry, and I should cut people some slack. Neither of them have asked questions about how I'm doing physically or emotionally, or even why I needed the surgery in the first place. Now, I know I'm a grown adult, but how do I possibly explain and justify to these two that I need a parent sometimes? That a nice thought from 2,000 miles away isn't enough when I'm struggling just to make it to the bathroom. I have felt so alone these past few months, and it's just so magnified since the surgery when I really needed support from family more than ever. I'm asking for that and I'm being denied, and I'm being told it's too much to expect like always. What should I do? Oh man, this really sucks, and I'm so sorry this happened to you. Because if I had a major surgery, I would also hope that my family would reach out and be like, hey, are you doing okay? It would mean a lot to me, at least, to like know that people have my back and they're thinking of me. And this is so much more than just being like, oh, I hope surgery goes well. That feels like they're not being genuine and they're just doing that to be like, okay, I said hope surgery goes well, so now I'm off the hook, right? So yeah, this really sucks, and hopefully you can move past this. Today, after I had a bad argument with my girlfriend, I now feel the need to break up with her just to protect my own safety. Because after she said she would call the police and lie to them to try and convince them that I'm mistreating her, I seriously do not feel safe around her anymore. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I went out to a party and I got a little bit drunk. And this party was something I had been invited to like 2 months in advance. This was all communicated beforehand, when I would be back home and how much I'm drinking. I text her throughout the night and then come back when everyone was going out, and this was around 12:30 in the morning. I then got home because of an Uber at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I napped on the floor whilst playing with our dog. Well, she went ballistic and said I'm blackout drunk, even though I definitely wasn't. Like, I was only moderately drunk. She then said that I'm a disappointment to my parents. She then helped me get to bed, and I just wanted to sleep, but she then continued to shout and try to kick me out and tell me to stay at a hotel. She then said something that honestly shocked me to my core. She said that she would call the police and tell them that I mistreated her, if you know what I mean. Now, it's really important to note that I have never ever laid a hand on her. Yes, we have had arguments, but we've always resolved it during the day. I honestly just can't get over this. The thing is, I provide everything. The rent, bills, food, spending money, date nights, not to mention the fact that I cook everything as well every night. Meanwhile, she's been unemployed for almost a year. I now want to break up with her and end it after this. Because seriously, I don't feel safe, and at this point, I don't know if I'm overreacting. What should I do? Okay, holy crap, this is absolutely not okay. First of all, I think you're completely within your rights to be like, yeah, I want to break up. Because if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing. She literally admitted that she would lie to the police and be like, oh, you're mistreating me. Like, what are we doing right now? That's not okay in my opinion. Also, some people in the comment section have made some really good points. They say that you should break up with her on camera so that there's no funny business. That way there's evidence that, yeah, you left peacefully and there's no funny business going on. So no, you're not overreacting because what she said is so uncalled for. My entitled coworker keeps taking my stuff off of my desk without asking first. And after asking politely and trying to be a reasonable person in this situation, I decided that enough was enough, as I got some revenge by literally doing the exact same thing to him, putting him in his place in a way that he will never forget. Here's what happened. So I work in medical billing, and there's this guy who I will call Trevor in my office, who has this annoying habit of just taking stuff from my desk without even asking first. I'm talking pens, sticky notes, my phone charger, snacks from my drawer, etc. He doesn't ask. He literally just grabs whatever he needs. On top of that, he almost never returns things. I'll find my good pens on his desk like a week later, not to mention the fact that my phone charger disappeared like 3 days ago until I finally saw it plugged into his computer. I've mentioned it a few times, like, hey, Trevor, can you ask before taking my stuff? Or I'll say, that was my last sticky note pad. And he just always laughs and says, oh yeah, my bad, dude. And then he keeps doing it. So to get some petty revenge, I just decided to start doing the exact same thing to him last week. I took his stapler off his desk when he was in a meeting, I used it, and I didn't return it. I grabbed his good pens, I ate his granola bars from his desk drawer, and I even took his phone charger when mine wasn't at my desk. And no, I didn't ask. I just took stuff doing the exact same thing that he did to me. Yesterday, he finally came up to me all annoyed, and he said to me, dude, why do you keep taking my stuff without asking? I need my stapler this morning and I couldn't find it. But I was just like, oh, I thought we were just sharing everything. Since you take my stuff all the time, I figured that was the system we had going. He then got kind of red in the face and was like, that's different. I always give your stuff back, which is a complete lie because I still haven't gotten back like 4 of my pens. And I even pointed that out. He then just walked away, but I can tell that he's pissed off. Our other coworkers said that I made my point, but now it's awkward in the office. But I will say that Trevor hasn't taken anything from my desk ever since this incident. So in my opinion, that's mission accomplished because that was really annoying and I did not want to deal with that any longer. Okay, I love this. First off, your other coworker's an idiot because this isn't happening to them and they're trying to be like, wow, why'd you do that? You made your point, but now things are awkward in the office. And it's like, oh, so you knew this was happening. Like, oh, okay, thanks a lot, dude. Thanks for doing nothing about this and instead letting Trevor run rampant at my desk. But guess what? The only person making things awkward is Trevor. Why is Trevor upset? This is literally what he did to you. Like, this just doesn't make any sense. So honestly, good for you for putting this guy in his place because he sounds super obnoxious. And I know if this was happening to me, I would also be very pissed off. A group of entitled jerks demand that they get served their food faster than anybody else, claiming that they had been waiting for over 45 minutes and that if they didn't get their food right away, they would be walking out. And after watching this guy chew out this waitress over and over again, I decided to stand up and put this guy in his place. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so Saturday evening, just before 6 p.m., my wife, myself, and our daughter go to dinner at a local sports bar. As you can imagine, on a Saturday night at this time, it is fairly busy, especially considering it was the Kentucky Derby night. We get seated right away and start perusing the menu. I get up to a high chair and on my way back to the table, a group of 3 men come in and get seated catty-corner to our table. And this is about 5 to 10 minutes after we had just been seated. The waitress comes to our table first as we were there first, and these entitled jerks get upset that she didn't see them first. They then snap at her. They force a drink order on her, and then they say, make it snappy, we're in a hurry. There was no regards for being polite, just this hurry up and service attitude that honestly was so obnoxious. We get our drinks and put in our orders, and then they get their drinks and they put in their order. Maybe 10 minutes go by, and one of the jerks at that table is visibly seething. He calls over the waitress and starts going in on her. He starts shouting, where's our food? Well, she kindly explains that they have the order in, and the kitchen is working on it right now. And mind you, it's only been 10 minutes on a Saturday night, and the Kentucky Derby is going off in about 40 minutes. Another 5 minutes or so go by, and again, the waitress is called over, she's being berated, and they're now throwing around the line that they have somewhere they need to be. And it's right then that the exaggerations start to flow in. We've been waiting for over half an hour for our food, as well as all this other garbage coming out of their mouth. At this point, I openly stare at them. I catch one of them in the eye, and I just give him the disappointed dad head shake, and I don't say anything. It's only been about 15 or 20 minutes that they've been waiting since ordering, and at this point, my table's food comes out and my family starts eating. As soon as the food hit our table, the one angry jerk is visibly livid. He calls over the waitress and starts going in on her again. He starts screaming, we've been waiting for over 45 minutes, which is just a huge exaggeration. He then says, if the kitchen doesn't have our food plated and out immediately, we are leaving. This is ridiculous. This has been the worst service ever. Now, the waitress does her best to calm them and goes to check on the food. But these jerks don't even give her a chance to come back, as they just get up and start to leave. Now, I had had a pint or two by this point, so I catch the same guy's eye and I loudly say to him, looks like big guy could probably skip a meal anyways. Now, the face he gave me honestly made me believe that he couldn't believe that I just said that. And he starts trying to tell me about how long they've waited and how terrible the service is. But I held my hand up and I just cut him off. I said to him, buddy, you guys got here 10 10 minutes after my family did. You've not been waiting 45 minutes. I don't care if you're in a hurry. That's your problem, not the restaurant's. You chose to come here full and well knowing that you had somewhere to be. And now you're mad that a busy sports bar is taking more than 20 minutes with your food? And this is the same generation that calls my generation lazy and entitled? That was the most entitled display of behavior I've ever seen. Well, when I said that, this guy was flabbergasted. He starts saying something about how, well, we didn't ask for your input. And I responded by saying, you are adults in public who literally just threw a very public temper tantrum. You're subject to the judgment and criticism of your peers when you are in public. That's how public works, buddy. He then started to just self-destruct into a litany of huffing noises of disgust. He then turned to the waitress and said, I want to speak to a manager. But I responded by saying, I don't work here, you idiot. I'm a paying customer just like you should have been. What's a manager gonna do? He then turned on his heels and started walking out with his buddies, so I started to boo them as they walked out the door, and no less than 3 other tables joined in, shooing them out the door along with me. Eventually, the manager and the waitress both came by our table and thanked me, and told me that I said exactly what they were thinking. And even though my wife was mortified that I did that, I will happily do that again if I ever see that type of behavior in public. That is honestly so cool that you actually stood up to those guys, because seriously, if I was sitting near that, I would be so annoyed. I can't stand when people go into a restaurant and they're like, oh, we've been waiting here for 45 minutes. But it's like, dude, we got here before you and we've been only waiting for what, 10 minutes? Like seriously, just get a grip and be patient for once in your life. So good for you for saying exactly what everybody was thinking. And hopefully those entitled jerks learn their lesson and they don't ever act like that in public ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for walking away from my parents after they told me they're going to adopt my brother's biological sibling? Because after years of feeling neglected by my parents, as well as having my needs put on the back burner, I now feel myself being left behind in my own family. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents became foster parents after I was born, and they actually adopted 3 kids from foster care before they decided to stop fostering. At the time, my parents said they wanted to focus more on their own kids, but really, I think they were struggling with 4 of us, and I think near the end, fostering became more for the money than anything else. As the oldest and their biological kid, just so they didn't worry if I felt like I belonged or not, I had to make more sacrifices than my siblings. Stuff for me just came last. I got less than my siblings too, and gifts to me were always cheaper, so that they could splurge a little for my siblings. So for Christmas, I'd maybe get some clothes and some books, even though I don't really read, and my siblings would get toys and tablets and stuff that they loved. And even for my birthday, my cake would be super small, and my gifts would basically be just essential things that I might need. When I was 12 years old, my grandparents bought me a laptop for my birthday, and my parents pressured me into giving it up just so it could be used as a family computer instead of a personal one just for me. I said no the first time, but my parents weren't going to accept it. I don't get to go out with my friends often because my parents don't want to use gas driving me, and they don't want to give me money to go eat or just to see a movie or anything. They also send me to birthdays without a gift for my friends, so I've asked my grandparents for money sometimes to buy a gift for my friends. But my parents never send my siblings without gifts for their friends. My parents wanted me to get a job, but they only wanted me to do that so that I could put money into the household. Since I get the short end of the stick, I don't want to add money to make everyone else's lives easier but not mine, and I don't believe that it would make my life any easier. In October, my grade will have the chance to go on the school's interactional trip. We were told about it in February so we can save and get numbers. I pleaded with my parents to find a way to send me. I got my grandparents to help me talk them through it, and they agreed, so they started saving. Then, a week ago, my parents announced that my younger brother's birth mom is pregnant again, and she approached them to do a private adoption so her kids could all be raised together, with my parents agreeing to do this. So they sat us down and told us, and mentioned that they had already spent the money saved for the trip. They said things will change for a couple of years, but we will have a new member of the family. Now, when I heard this, I was so pissed off and hurt that I just walked out. I walked away from my parents and ignored them when they called me back. They were so angry about it, and when my grandparents found out, they offered to pay for the trip for me. But my parents said they would stop them paying directly, and if they give the money to me or to them, they will make sure that it goes on more important important things. My parents are now calling me childish and petty for walking away like I did. So right now, I need to know if I'm the jerk in this situation, because I am still so upset and I now just don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. I'm so sorry that your parents are acting this way, because I think you got it right earlier. It seems like they're only in it for being a foster parent because they get money out of it, not because they actually care about the kids they're watching. And also, why should you have to sacrifice all this stuff just so your younger siblings can have a better life than you? It really seems like your needs are completely put on the back burner, and that is honestly just not fair. Now, when it comes to that trip, I think there might be solutions available with the school. Like maybe if you talk to like one of the school counselors or something like that, they might be able to help you out and be like, okay, we can pay for this trip for you. And trust me, you would not be the first person to make that kind of request. So hopefully this all works out for you in some kind of way, because honestly, the way your parents are acting is completely inappropriate. My wife of 8 years cheated on me with someone who isn't even real, as she fell for a TikTok scam thinking that a musician was trying to hook up with her. And now that I found out, I am completely heartbroken. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old male, and I noticed a couple weeks ago that my wife was acting distant and very uninterested in me. I asked her if she was mad at me, to which she said, no, I've just been in a funk. Now, I just felt that something was off. So I waited until she fell asleep, and then I went through her phone, which is something I have never done since we were together, and we've been together for over 10 years. Well, upon opening her phone, I found a text thread with a guy, and they were calling each other babe and baby and stuff along those lines, along with some extremely explicit text messages and pictures. Well, when I saw that, I woke her up and I pretty much told her that we were done. I left to cool off, and I came back and her and I talked more, to which she said he was a musician and he randomly added her on TikTok, and they started talking innocently, but it then led to something more. She told me she hadn't felt appreciated or wanted in a while, and it just sort of happened, but she didn't even know what she wanted. I basically told her that if she wanted to run off with some musician, then do whatever you want, but you are definitely going to be the one to explain it to our kids. And for reference, we have 2 very young girls. She went to bed and I just stayed up all night, just in complete disbelief, trying to work out my feelings. In the morning, her personality changed and she was very apologetic and asked if we could talk later that day. I said sure for the sake of our kids, and I pretty much cried all day, something I rarely do, but I wanted to try and work through it because I don't want my kids to grow up with only me in their lives 50% of the time. I went through the messages as I took pictures of them in case I needed them for divorce court, and I noticed that all the pictures that were sent to her from this guy were from this person's social media, which really seemed odd. As we talked later that day, I asked her more details of them messaging on TikTok, and she said to me, well, it wasn't his main account, it was another account, and that's why she gave him her number, because he said his other account was going to be banned soon. Well, this immediately confirmed my suspicion that it was a scammer or a catfisher, and simply did a Google search of TikTok musician scam. And when I did that, I found a video from the actual musician stating that he was getting reports that people were making fake profiles pretending to be him to scam women. So yes, my wife of 8 years was emotionally cheating on me with a fake person. And now I honestly don't know what to do. I love her with all of my heart, but I'm honestly broken. We have never had a trust issue in 10 years of being together, and all of that is now gone. I admit that I haven't been the perfect husband. I work in professional sports, so I'd work 14 hours a day and come home and just play video games for an hour before bed just so I can de-stress. And then I would do it all over again 5 days in a row. So I get that I can be responsible for the deterioration of our relationship that may have pushed her to do this, but I just don't know how I'm supposed to trust her and also unsee the text messages, especially the explicit stuff. So honestly, am I overreacting for being hurt and not knowing how to move forward? Because at this point, I feel hurt and very confused. Okay, this honestly is so messed up on so many reasons. For starters, not only in my opinion did your wife try to cheat on you, but your wife is also a complete moron. Like seriously, who would add somebody on TikTok and be like, oh yeah, now's my chance to cheat? Like that place is riddled with scams exactly like that, and you have to be a complete idiot to send messages like that to somebody you don't even know. Like how is that not more obvious to your wife? For reference, she is 33 years old. Was she seriously expecting to run away with this musician and start a new life? Like her attempt at cheating on you in the first place, in my opinion, would really upset me. But the fact that it wasn't even real in the first place, and that she did this all for nothing, is honestly so devastating. Like that's really heartbreaking, because what what if it was real? Would she really try to run off and be with this musician guy? Like, that is just so unbelievably toxic. So no, I don't think you're overreacting at all, and I don't think you working a lot and playing video games would ever lead anybody to make this kind of decision. Like, there are so many steps she should have taken if she really felt that this relationship was falling apart. It's like she went from feeling left out of this marriage to suddenly being like, okay, time to cheat, and that, in my opinion, is just completely unfair for you. So hopefully, for the sake of your two daughters, this all works out, because what she tried to do is completely unacceptable. Today, I messed up by being a bad girlfriend and only thinking about the money that we're making in our house after my boyfriend lost his job, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been with my boyfriend for almost a year now, and we've been living together for 3 months. I work a salon and make just under $30,000, whereas he makes almost $150,000 at his job. Unsurprisingly, since we've been living together, he has covered all of our living expenses, which is a blessing. 3 days ago, he came home and told me that he lost his job, and I straight up panicked, and the first thing I asked him was how we were going to live. When I said that, he didn't say anything. He looked super defeated and just went in and took a shower, and then afterwards he went for a walk and still didn't say anything to me. I figured he must have been panicking as well and didn't know what to say or how to deal with the situation. Well, ever since then, we have barely talked. I went home last night and my dad could tell that something was wrong, so he asked me and I told him that he lost his job, and his first response was to say, that's all right. He's the smartest kid I know, and I know he'll find a job that pays him double. I then told my dad everything, and he said to me that all my boyfriend really needed was for me to reassure him and hug him. But instead, I only thought about my livelihood and showed no concerns for him or the difficulty of being jobless. I brought it up to him this morning, and he said he doesn't care about the job, and he can always find another job by next week if he wants to, and has enough savings to maintain our current lifestyle for over a year, but told me he was very demoralized and he was very hurt by what my priorities were in the situation. And right now, I feel like such a jerk and an unsupportive girlfriend, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, this is a really rough one. You really did jump to this weird conclusion that your life is pretty much going to be upended instead of trying to comfort your boyfriend and be there for him. Like, I can only imagine how much that must have hurt. He was probably looking for a shoulder to lean on, but instead he got bombarded with his girlfriend basically saying, wait, how are we going to live now? So in that regards, I think you definitely got your priorities mixed up, and I think at least moving forward, you can learn from this and do better in the future, because the way you handled this situation absolutely was very rude. Am I the jerk for saying that I don't care about my half-sister's wedding and that I don't even want to go after she expressed exactly how she feels about me? Because right now, my mom and grandparents are devastated that I don't want to attend, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my half-sister is somewhere in her 20s. I think she's maybe 26 or 27 years old, but I honestly don't know. We're not close enough for me to remember her exact age, even though we lived in the same house when I was younger. And for reference, I'm a 16-year-old female. My half-sister lost her dad when she was 5 or 6 years old, and then mom met my dad and they got married and had me and my 2 younger siblings who are 13 and 12 years old. I was still in elementary school when my half-sister moved out, and she basically had nothing more to do with me. She would visit to see mom, but she didn't really care about the rest of us and would be forced civil, if you know what that means. Like, you could see she was forcing herself to say anything to us and to not roll her eyes or look disgusted that we were there. I remember being 9 and hearing her and mom fight outside the house one day, with my half-sister telling my mom to stop acting like my dad was part of her family, that mom married him, but he was just her husband, and she was not going to treat him like he was her parent, and my mom argued that dad had done nothing wrong and didn't deserve outright rejection of even a friendly relationship. My half-sister told my mom the only person in the house she cared about was her, and that my dad could give her a kidney and she would still say that he's just mom's husband, and she wouldn't care if we, meaning my dad, me, and my siblings, all dropped dead because we meant nothing to her, not even a little bit. Well, fast forward and my half-sister is getting married now, and I'm so over all the talk and the fighting about it. The fight came from my half-sister saying that dad wasn't going to have any kind of role in her wedding, and neither were my siblings or me. She said we were a guest that she tolerated and that we were nothing else. Dad had hoped that he would get a dance with her at least, and my mom wanted that for him as well, because she feels like my dad has done a lot for my half-sister over the years and has always done his best to be a good member of her family. Well, my half-sister said we were only invited because of mom, and that's all there is to it. My parents talk about it a lot, and they were talking talking about whether mom should go alone, but they didn't want to upset us by making us miss our big sister getting married. I jumped in unannounced and said I didn't care about her wedding, and I definitely didn't want to go. My mom looked so devastated to hear that, and my dad spoke to me afterwards and said that I could have handled it a lot better because all four of us are mom's kids, and she never wanted our relationship with our half-sister to be so bad. Afterwards, my mom apparently talked to her parents, and they asked me why I had to be so cruel and asked me if I didn't realize that giving up means there is no hope for a better relationship with my half-sister in the future, and how this is completely unfair to my mom. Well, my mom was horrified when they said that to me, but between my grandparents and my dad, I'm honestly left wondering if I did something wrong. So am I the jerk for not wanting to go to my half-sister's wedding? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think it's pretty clear that your half-sister is very toxic, and honestly, it really seems like there's no reason for that toxicity. Like she just hates you for no good reason, and is essentially ostracizing herself from everybody else in the family besides her mom. Like she doesn't even care if you're alive or dead. You literally mean nothing to her. I mean, you heard her say that. And like, what does your family expect you to do in a situation like that? Your half-sister expressed all of these opinions in front of her mom, the same person who's giving you a hard time for saying, no, I'm not going to show up. Your mom is blatantly excusing this behavior and basically allowing it to happen at your expense. Why should you have to walk on broken glass that your half-sister literally threw down in front of the entire family? Like, shouldn't your mom at least step in and be like, wait a second, why would you talk to your family like that? Because as far as I'm seeing, this all pretty much falls on the half-sister. So if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would show up to that wedding. Her behavior and her attitude towards you and your family is completely unacceptable. And if they really want to harbor some kind of relationship in the future, then they need to take that up with the stepsister and not you. Because it doesn't sound like you've done anything wrong, as it sounds like any animosity comes exactly from your stepsister. My husband allowed his brother to propose to his girlfriend at our wedding. And this is all despite the fact that I said no, this is not gonna happen. But now that my worst fears have come true, and after running out of my wedding in a fit of rage, I'm now considering divorcing my husband as I feel completely betrayed. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, this is a throwaway account, and all the names in this story have been changed. I married my sweet husband Liam last Saturday, and it was perfect, except for one major hiccup during the reception. Liam has an older brother by the name of Ben, and they are very close. So it was no surprise when Liam asked Ben to be his best man. While I like most of my new in-laws, Ben has always rubbed me the wrong way with his behavior. He would crack all of these jokes that aren't really funny and tries way too hard to be the cool and popular guy. He's kind of like Screech from Saved by the Bell, only 10 times more annoying. To be honest, I feel somewhat sorry for Ben. Liam was diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he and Ben were kids, and as a result, their parents lavished more time and attention on Liam. This led to Ben being emotionally neglected, and as a result, he acted out big time in his teenage years. He got into a lot of trouble, and this led to their parents swinging the pendulum in the opposite direction, lavishing all their attention on Ben. Now, Liam kept his head down and didn't say anything, and to this day, their parents are more likely to side with Ben than with Liam. Now, Liam is a very sweet guy, as I mentioned. Unfortunately, he is a bit of a people pleaser and doesn't really understand social etiquette and social cues very well. It has caused some problems, but I don't regret knowing him or even marrying him. 4 weeks ago, Liam and I were having dinner with his parents and Ben, and everything was fun, and we were all talking about plans outside the wedding. And that's when Ben revealed that he had plans to ask his girlfriend by the name of Melody if she would marry him. And mind you, they'd been dating for 5 years. Now, of course, we were all excited and asked about his plans for the proposal. And that's when Ben turned to Liam and said something I honestly never expected. He said to him,
I was hoping to do it at your reception.
Now, when I heard that, I just laughed nervously. Knowing his tendency to make bad jokes, I told him, well, if you do that, any of my brothers would probably throw you out of the venue. But when I said that, Ben got offended that I laughed, and I realized that he was being serious. Now, instead of asking me what I thought, which he's pretty good about doing, Liam said, of course you can, Melody will love it. I touched Liam's arm and I said, we'll talk about it later. And he didn't understand why I was so upset, but I just wanted to get out of there, as my mother-in-law and father-in-law were too busy congratulating Ben, and I would not be able to tell Liam why it was such a bad idea. So Liam and I moved to a different room, and I explained to him about how another person proposing or making a major announcement was really in bad taste, as it takes away from the bride and groom. Well, when Liam heard that, he nodded and he was crestfallen. Feeling sorry for him, I said to him, how about this? this. We organize a party with Ben for him to propose to Melody. That way, it could be far more memorable. Well, Liam liked the idea and we both went out. We went up to Ben and I told him that we were willing to help organize a special party so he can propose to Melody there, while also making it clear that he was not to propose at our wedding. Well, Ben nodded to what we said, and I thought that that was the end of it, but honestly, I couldn't have been more wrong. Saturday rolls around and the day goes off without a hitch. We get everything done and it's now time for the reception. And Ben, as the best man, has a speech prepared for us. It was full of bad jokes and weird attempts at puns, but it was overall very nice. But part of Ben's speech was to move around the tables, which really should have been a red flag, but I decided to not say anything. And at the end of the speech, Ben stopped at Melody and proposed to her. When this happened, I was so mad that I stormed out. Liam and my mom came to comfort me, and Liam apologized over and over again. He just kept saying over and over again that they told him it would be fine. Now, I was just so done at that point. My mom offered to drive me home, and Liam just kept begging for forgiveness, but I said to him quite bluntly, "Don't call me, I will call you." And after I said that, I left. Needless to say, Liam and I haven't seen each other since. My side of the family is angry at Liam and his family, but his family, on the other hand, are congratulating Ben and Melody, and most of their Facebook feed are pictures of Ben's proposal. Now, I was prepared to file for annulment and move on, all the way up until Liam sent me an email, and it's then that I learned that Ben and their parents applied a lot of pressure on Liam over and over again until he finally caved the night before the wedding. I asked him why he didn't just come to me, and he said to me that I was so stressed out and that he didn't want me to worry. Liam concluded by saying, "I want another chance. Please just give me another chance." Now, at this point, I'm really torn. I don't like that Liam went behind my back thanks to family pressure. That is not a good sign for our marriage. But on the other hand, I do still love him. And since he's a horrible liar, I know he's telling the truth. I still haven't made up my mind about what I want to do. Is our marriage even salvageable? Can we even rebuild this? Liam is genuine, but can I somehow persuade him that a family should never do that to another member of their family? What should I do? Okay, this is actually insane to me. This is not only a massive betrayal of trust, but it is also super sketchy that they did this behind your back. They went around you completely and pressured Liam until he said yes, which is something you definitely did not want. Also, how do these people not know that you don't propose at someone else's wedding or like their reception? Like seriously, that is so disgusting to do to somebody, and for his family to pressure your husband like that is just so wrong. Like you would think that'd be something you're automatically just gonna say, no, we're not gonna do that, but apparently Ben and his stupid parents just don't see it. And that really is a shame, because this could seriously ruin your marriage. Like if this is not a clear indication that they can manipulate Liam into doing whatever they want, then I don't know what is. Like this is the biggest day of both of your lives, and they literally ruined it behind your back. And if they can do that on your wedding day, then who's to say they wouldn't do that in the future? They clearly know the exact buttons to push on Liam to get him to do whatever they want. Who's to say they wouldn't do that again and just stomp all over your boundaries? So honestly, this is a really sketchy situation. It sounds like your new extended family are just really toxic, and what's even worse is that they just don't care. They're happily posting pictures of Ben and his girlfriend getting engaged, all while ignoring the fact that you and Liam literally just got married that same day, and they're the ones that ruined that entire ceremony completely. So no, I don't think you're crazy for possibly wanting to get a divorce like right away, because what just happened to you is completely unacceptable. And in my opinion, this is a clear indication on how these people are going to act for the rest of your life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for accusing my husband in front of his family of treating me like hired help instead of like his wife? Because right now he is very upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old female, and I've been married to my husband for 4 years, with us being together for 7.5 years, and we have 2 children together. One that's 2 years old and one that's 5 months old. My husband was married before we met, and he and his ex-wife separated during her pregnancy with their daughter and divorced after she turned 1. Now, to my stepdaughter, I am dad's wife, and I'm honestly completely okay with that. We get along fine mostly, but she does struggle to be left with me in charge, and my husband knows this. We have discussed this at length, and we have worked together to figure out some kind of solution. We even talked with his ex, who is okay with me being around her daughter, but didn't like the idea of her daughter being with me if instead she could be with her, and in general just didn't like the fact that I would be in a parental role if alone with her kid. She has a very big dislike of the idea of step-parents becoming just like parents, and she has never wanted her daughter to view me as any kind of mother figure. So discussions were had and agreements were made. Now onto the issue itself. My husband always has a very busy period of work in June and in July, and he's basically only home to sleep and nothing else. In June, his ex is having surgery and will be out of commission and in the hospital for some time. My ex's surgery was not mentioned to me at all, but Saturday night when we were at my in-laws' house, my husband started venting about his ex's surgery and her not wanting their daughter to be in my care all day, and his daughter not wanting to have me in charge of her that much, and how he told them I would be doing it and nothing they said or did would change this. He was angry at his ex and his daughter a little for having such a dislike for me being in charge, even though we all just get along fine. I asked him when all this happened, and he said it had been a few days ago. He told me that she would be with us from June 6th until July 4th, and possibly even longer, that he was already told he will need to work most Saturdays in June and July, so he told me I'll need to figure out how best to deal with that. Now, I asked him why he sprung this on me in front of his family instead of discussing this privately, but he just waved me off and said he knew I wouldn't say no because I love my stepdaughter and I understand that she needs to be with an adult. He saw an expression on my face and told me I couldn't be angry about it, since I know that my stepdaughter is still a kid. I told him I wasn't mad at her, I was mad at him, but he told me he can't help his ex and his daughter being somewhat unreasonable. My mother-in-law chimed in and offered to take my stepdaughter during the daytime for June, and he told her that I would handle it and that she should be with us. And this right here is when I accused him of treating me like a hired help and not as his wife because he wasn't discussing it with me at all, and he was making decisions for me without even asking me or discussing things through. Well, fast forward, and it was afterwards that he told me I shouldn't speak to him like that in front of his family. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because seriously, I'm not sure what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your husband was completely out of line discussing this in public. This really does sound like a really private discussion, and it doesn't sound like something that anyone else in the family should know about. So if he's willing to embarrass you in front of the entire family, then in my opinion, you have every right to say something back in front of his. Like, why should he be the only one to basically put you down and treat you like hired help? Which is exactly what he did, by the way. He said, oh, don't worry about it, she's gonna take care of it. And it's like, wait a second, you're bringing this up in front of the family and you're denying family members from being helpful and like chiming in? Like, no, that is not how this is gonna work. And he definitely does not have the right to embarrass you in front of them like that. So no, your husband is 100% at fault because this is something he absolutely should have discussed in private. My entitled mother stole all of my money that I'd been saving for over a month. And when I confronted her about it, she simply complained that I'm still young and I don't even need the money anyways. And I'm honestly still blown away that she would do this, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been working every single day for a month without a day off because I wanted to go on a vacation with my friends after graduation. I mean, I worked so hard for this. I was saving them in my drawer, and there is a lock on it, so wherever I go, I take the key with me. But today, unfortunately, my idiotic self forgot the key on the dining room table. I went to the bathroom to take a shower, and nobody was home except for me and my mother. My siblings were all at school having an exam. So when I finished showering, I saw the keys in my room, but I didn't really care. I thought maybe I moved them before I went to the bathroom. Then I prepared my desk to study, and when I finished studying, I thought to myself, maybe I can go hang out with some friends. So I opened my drawer to grab some money, but I was shocked to find that all of it was gone. Nothing was left. So obviously, nobody's home except for me and my mom. I go to her and I confronted her as calmly as I could, and I said to her, "Did you open my drawer?" And I swear, I thought I saw her hand shaking as she said to me, "No, I didn't. Why?" I said to her, "Well, all of my money's gone." She said to me, "I didn't take anything. Someone's stealing my money as well. Or maybe you just dropped it somewhere like you always do. You are pretty careless." I said to her, "Well, if someone's stealing your money, then why would you take mine?" She then looked up at me and said, "Don't you dare talk to me like that. I'm your mother. Now close the door and get out of my sight before I pray that you fail your exams. What are you gonna do with money anyways? You're still young. Money comes and goes." And when she said this, I just didn't know what to say. I went back to my room and I texted my dad, and I told him exactly what happened, but I still haven't gotten a response back. My final exams are in 2 weeks, and I now can't work anymore, and my friends and I are planning that on the last day of the exam, we're going to be heading straight out to go on vacation. This is the first time in my entire life that I feel so so helpless and betrayed like that. But you know what? After graduation, I'm moving out of my parents' home, even if I become homeless, because honestly, I simply don't care anymore. Wow, that's really awful that your mom basically stole your money. Like, she can sit there and deny it and be like, oh yeah, I didn't steal it. But like, seriously, you're the only person that could have done it in the house. Like, that stash of money didn't just grow legs and start running away. Plus, the keys were moved from the dining room table over to your room. Like, all the evidence really points to her, especially with how defensive she got when you're like, wait a second, why did you take my money? And she's like, oh, what are you gonna do with money? You're so young. And it's like, what are you talking about? There are so many things I plan on doing with that money, and one of those is moving out of this house. So truly, I'm so sorry that you lost that money, and maybe in the meantime, it might be time to see if you can set up some kind of bank account so this can't happen again. Because what happened to you truly is not fair, and you do not deserve it in the slightest. My manager has said awful things about a brand new employee literally on the first day of her training, and I am seriously so glad that I'm getting out of that job because this kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable. Here's what happened. Okay, so everything about my job just rubs me the wrong way. I have an interview somewhere else tomorrow, so I'm just here to talk about this because it honestly really bothered me. The new hire looked really young, and since she was training for host, I assumed that this was one of her first jobs and she still is in school or something like that. And truly, all of our hosts are in school and started hosting to become servers. I said hi and asked her when she started, and she told me that today was her first day. She seemed a bit shy and timid, which is understandable being young and at a new job, possibly one of her first. Well, the hosts and all the other support staff went home, and as we were doing our checkout, the manager starts talking about the new girl, and they said, oh, I didn't see her do a thing tonight. It looked like she did a whole bunch of nothing. And I was just standing there like, is this guy serious? What else did you expect from someone who was training and watching on their first day? Our hosts also don't just hang around and sit people all night, but they also help bust tables, they reset the tables, they sweep, they clean menus after each use, as well as several other things. And I saw her cleaning menus and setting tables. There's also a point of sale system behind the host stand that servers use, so it can get crowded and overwhelming back there at times. He started saying jokingly, well, maybe I missed it. Did you guys see her do anything today? And was even asking the other servers that same question. And I just felt so disgusted. And additionally, his idiotic self was upstairs and out of sight for like 80% of the night. So how in the world would he know anyways? Like, was he trash talking me on my first week to my coworkers? Because honestly, that's likely so. It's one thing to think that, but it's another to vocalize it in front of that person's coworkers, as well as to your employees. That is honestly just so unprofessional and so childish. Wow, I can't imagine actually doing that to one of your employees who's literally new to the job. Like, this is their first day on the job and you're like, wow, I didn't see them do a single thing all day. But it's like, yeah, no kidding, buddy. Maybe you didn't train her or do anything to help her out. Like, that really is disgusting and toxic. No wonder the original poster's interviewing literally anywhere else. Like, if that was my work environment, there's no way I would stick around. So truly, good job for the original poster for getting out of there, because these people sound absolutely awful. My entitled neighbor gets caught letting his dog go to the bathroom in my yard and then cusses me out as soon as I confront him. Here's what happened. So about a week ago, I noticed dog droppings all throughout my front yard and on my front porch. And since I don't have a dog, I kept trying to figure out who it was. Anyways, I work from home on different days of the week, but I park in the garage so it looks like no one is home. Well, early yesterday morning, I see one of my neighbors letting his dog walk through my yard, urinate, and then leave, which is honestly not really a big deal for me. I don't really have a problem with that. But around lunchtime yesterday, as I'm sitting in a meeting, I see him walking across the street into my yard again, and this time with his leash off, and his dog just poops in my yard. And then after that, he walks back across the street and then goes inside. I then decide to set up by the window to catch him in the act later in the afternoon. And a few hours later, he came back out with the same routine. He went right across the street into my yard. So I immediately open the door and I calmly tell him that he needs to keep his dog out of my yard and he needs to clean up after him. Well, instead of apologizing, this guy starts yelling and cussing me out, claiming that he was in his house first and his dog has a routine that she doesn't need to break. He then tells me that I should be at work instead of being lazy at home. He said he watches me leave and doesn't know how I afford a house when apparently I only work 2 days a week, but those 2 days are when I'm in the office. After this, he tells me that he's lucky his dog didn't attack me because she doesn't like being startled. Then today I go outside and I find 3 bags of poop sitting on my front porch. Now I call the non-emergency sheriff line to let them know that I'm having issues, but I am beginning to think that this guy might be off his rocker Shocker. Yeah, that is not normal behavior. I would definitely be calling the police as well because that is so unacceptable. So seriously, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, and hopefully something can get figured out sooner than later. My entitled managers refused to give me my days off that I'm requesting simply because I was trying to be nice and said that I would be willing to work in the mornings if needed. But now after all is said and done, I am left feeling extremely frustrated. And at this point, I really just need to find another job. Here's what happened. So my restaurant got tired of people having a life and requesting days off, so they made a rule where you can't request 1 or 2 days off, and instead you have to request at least 3 days off. If you just want 1 or 2 days off, you have to wait until that week's schedule comes out and then try to get someone to cover your shift, which by the way is almost impossible since the restaurant is open 5 days a week and almost everybody works every single day. And I'm pretty sure this is the policy just to discourage people from requesting time off. So I requested 3 days off like I'm supposed to, so that I could go to a 3-day concert event with my friend. However, the venue is close by, and the concert starts at around 7 o'clock every single night, so I figured I'd just drive there every night. So I wrote on my request form that I can work the lunch shift if I need to, because I figured, what the heck, if they need me, I could still be on the schedule. Well, today an assistant manager comes to me and says that my request off wasn't approved, and if I wanted to go, I would have to get people to cover my shift. I said to them, wait, why didn't I get the time off? I requested 3 days off like the rules say. She said to me, yeah, but you said you could work the lunch shift, and we don't let people choose their schedules. But I said to her that I just did that so that you guys wouldn't have a hard time filling the shift. And if you know there's people to cover my shift, why don't you just schedule them for those shifts? She just looked at me and said, you should have just asked for the whole days off. I don't write the schedule. I asked another assistant manager, and he said the exact same thing. Like, they even have the ability to cover my shifts easily, but they just don't want to do it. Now, as a note, they almost always schedule me for lunch shifts on weekends already, and it's been that way since the first week that I've worked there. So basically, the fact that I offered to work on those days is the reason I got denied. So I put in another request today, not offering to work those days, and I'm expecting to be denied because it will make the owner look stupid if she gives it to me now. If she doesn't, I might just approach her and ask her to explain it to me, because there's no possible answer that she can give me that doesn't make her look like a complete idiot. I mean, I was a manager for over a decade, and I can say that writing the schedule does suck, but I still did it, and I tried to let employees have their requests off if possible. But overall, I'm just completely sick of this, and at this point, I seriously just need to find another job. Yeah, that place sounds awful. There is literally no reason why they couldn't just give you those 3 days off. Like, this really is some kind of like manager BS, where they only kept you on the schedule because you gave them an option to keep you on the schedule. Like, here you are trying to be nice and they took complete advantage of it and said, okay, you're just gonna work then. Sorry, I don't control the schedule. Like, that's such a cop-out, it's not even funny. So yeah, I hope you find that new job, because this restaurant that you work at sounds absolutely awful. My entitled boss fires me after I refuse to quit my second job, stating that the only reason I have a second job is because I'm lazy. And I'm honestly still in shock by the way this guy treated me. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back when I was 18 years old. Things may seem off, but remember, this was in the early 2000s, and that time was a crazy time. Now, for the sake of the story, I'll call my main boss the entitled boss, and my second boss the nice boss. Now, when I was 18 years old, my 37-year-old entitled boss was a tyrant. He lived life on easy mode. College was cheap for him, and he didn't have to pay because his dad covered all of it. His business was even started on him having advantages over his employees in life. He couldn't see that though, because he felt that he worked for all of it. He simply did not get how his millennial employees were struggling with what we were being paid. We were getting paid $5 an hour at the time, which I know for a fact was below the minimum wage at the time. I didn't complain though, because I needed a job. Living in New York is expensive, but it is hard to leave New York when your family is broke. At the time, I just started college, and he knew that and agreed to me having Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. That way I can go to school and at least have one day to myself. I needed to save towards paying off student loans and eventually getting my own place. Now, my parents were not bad, but could not afford paying for me to go to college and covering basic expenses. Now, lucky for me, I did get a scholarship and grants, but it did not cover everything. So I needed a job. Part of my money went to household expenses as well as my needs, along with attempting to save for my future. So I got this job. I thought since my boss agreed to do this and was younger, I wouldn't have any issues. And I thought it would be okay, but I was completely wrong. My entitled boss worked the younger employees to the bone. We only had 10-minute breaks for meals and barely got any time for ourselves. Even our bathroom trips were being timed. I mean, this guy just had no sympathy. Even if a woman was pregnant, there was no leeway. And to top it all off, we were scared of upsetting him because he would go from friendly to crazy at the drop of a dime. One girl who was working there quit because she was wanting more than one day to bury her grandmother. He told her,
"Why are you crying? Your grandma was old. When I lost my grandparents, I didn't even take a day off. I just kept working. God, kids these days are so sensitive. The real world isn't going to coddle you, sweetheart. You get one day or you're fired."
Well, when he said that, she tossed her name badge at him and then she left. And seriously, that girl was super brave. I noticed that even with my regular hours, I was struggling to get by. So I looked for small gigs I can do on my work days that wouldn't conflict with my work hours. So I found one that worked. I worked part-time at a small craft store in my neighborhood, and it was after my main job hours and by my house. Now, I kept this on the down low because I knew if my boss found out I was working somewhere else, he would get mad that I requested 3 days off during the week. However, a regular of our store let it slip while she thanked me, which is how he found out that I was working at the craft store as well. And when he found out, he had an absolute meltdown. During my break, he called me to his office and he demanded that I quit my second job so that I can be on call for my main one. He wanted me to work longer hours, but wouldn't give me a raise or even overtime to compensate for the extra time I might have been working, which by the way was not even guaranteed. Like seriously, I needed guaranteed money. So what incentive did I have to quit my second job? I needed extra money. Now, my nice boss from the craft store, they were paying me $6.50 an hour, and this was for 3 hours at 4 days a week. So when I said that I can't quit because I need that job for basic expenses, my entitled boss said to me,
"Don't you live with your parents? That's kind of pathetic. What expenses do you have? When I was your age, I already had my first home and was paying a mortgage. You just work here and go to college. Wait till you have to pay a mortgage and take care of kids. You either quit or you're gonna be fired."
Now, when he said that, I was so annoyed. He was not paying me extra and he was not entitled to my time. He used up my only break to tell me to be broke because he thinks I'm leeching off of my parents. So I looked at him and I said, no, I'm not gonna quit. If you aren't giving me steady hours or a pay increase, why should I leave my second job? Also, I don't know why he didn't get that I am an adult. I had to pay towards my student loans, my phone, my transportation, and my food. This guy had no sympathy. And after my shift, he fired me. He expected me to bend to him, but I just didn't do it. He was a jerk and he made my life a living nightmare, even after I was fired. I couldn't even put that place on my resume because if I did, he would tell potential employers that I'm lazy and that I stole food. So I just put the nice manager as my previous employer, and she was overall significantly a much nicer person. I told her what happened and she gave me a little more hours at the craft store, and that really helped until the end of the semester. When I was looking for work, she gave me a good recommendation, and she was the sweetest woman. Now, I did have to pause my education because it took a while to get a new job. I needed to save up to continue and eventually found a better paying job at a clinic. My nice boss wished me good luck in my future, and years later, when I was about 28 years old, I saw that this guy's store was for sale, and I was so happy to see that this guy's store got shut down. I asked around, and my old coworker said that nobody wanted to work for him because he was such a jerk. He started hiring undocumented workers and got in trouble for that. His wife left him for cheating on her with a 20-year-old, and he got fined so much he had to sell his home just to cover the fines and alimony. And as a wonderful ironic twist, he apparently had to move in with his parents. And I laughed so hard because this guy made my life a living nightmare for living with my parents. He was now divorced and living off of his parents all over again. And this is honestly just the best thing I could have ever seen. By then, I was a pastry chef making good money in Manhattan. So the universe was basically giving me a high five. And you know what? I saw that as karma. I was told that I could sue him, but at the time, I really didn't have the time or money to do that. But fate made this man feel it in the end. So I let it all go and I just moved forward. Now I'm in my own place with my loving partner. And I'm now almost the same age as my former entitled boss when I was fired. And trust me, I will never treat kids the same way that this entitled boss treated me. Yeah, your former boss is absolutely the worst. Seriously, this guy was like, you can only work for me. You're gonna have to quit that other job. But by the way, I'm not gonna pay you anything extra. Then it's like, wait a second, then why would I ever quit that job? I totally understand where you're coming from, where you're like, wow, this job sucks, and I definitely definitely need something else so I can make ends meet. So for this guy to try and deny you that kind of relief is just crazy to me. So good for you for moving on with your life, and it is so good to see that karma got back at this guy, because his behavior and the way he treated you was so unfair, and you definitely did not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My stepmom no longer wants me a part of the family and has constantly treated me like garbage over the years. And at this point, I'm now living with my grandparents, and I simply have no desire to ever move back. Here's what happened. So I'm 20 years old, and I just got back from college. And recently, I got into a fight with my stepmom. I accidentally broke some glass on the door, and she had a temper tantrum over it. It was really humiliating because this happened in public. She started screaming at me and cussing me out, and it was then that I just lost my temper, and I said to her, "Wow, you didn't even ask if I was okay." And to that, she lost it even more and told me that if I didn't like her rules, then I can leave. So that's exactly what I did. And yes, I did pay someone to fix the glass, and I did apologize constantly to her, but she told me that my apology means nothing to her. So I thought to myself, okay, fine, whatever. I've been staying at my grandparents' for the past 5 days, and almost every single day, her and my father try to guilt trip me back into the house. For reference, it was my birthday a couple of days ago, and they told me that if I came home, I could have my present, but I wasn't falling for it, and I told them that I'll come back when I come back, which at this point is probably never. Even my dad tries to talk to me, which I was open about, and he told me the next day that he would come and get me from my grandparents' house so that we could talk. Well, that day came, and when I asked him when he was getting me, he told me to have one of my grandparents drop me off instead at the house. And at this point, my thoughts were like, yeah, that's a trap. That is not going to happen. My stepmother has also decided to be petty and kick me off of the Apple and Amazon family sharing. And I'm constantly being bothered that I need to go home. In fact, my father texted me yesterday saying to me, "You need to remember all the good things we did for you in the past and how good your stepmother has been to you." And my response was to say, well, I'm focusing on the present and not the past. And I feel like that's another guilt trip tactic. So I just blocked them both. And trust me, I have a lot more stories about how awful they've treated me, which are just as bad, if not worse, than what they're currently putting me through. Wow, good for you for finally getting out of that house. It sounds like this has been like a repeat issue for long enough, and dealing with this kind of stuff can only bring you so far. Like anybody has their breaking point, and they can only put up with so much at a time. So hopefully you don't have to go back to that house anytime soon, because your dad and your stepmom sound incredibly toxic. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for calling out a Karen who was blatantly trying to steal from the store I was shopping at? Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened to me on Christmas Eve. I was working late that evening and got off duty at around midnight. My wife called me to tell me that we were out of baby formula and that I needed to pick up some before coming home. I stopped by our local store that's open for 24 hours, and of course, being Christmas Eve and nearing 1 o'clock in the morning, it was absolutely packed. They must have been short-staffed because there was only one checkout lane open at the time, so the line to get out of the store was quickly getting longer. So I grabbed the baby formula and quickly got in line. While patiently waiting my turn and scrolling through my phone, I noticed the entitled Karen of this story going down the line of people waiting to check out, asking them if she could borrow their ID, because apparently, and this is the story I got, she had returned too many things to the store without a receipt on her driver's license during the past year, and she had somehow reached her limit. She was actually hoping that someone would let them use their driver's license in order to make a return on her purchase, because she said, and I quote, "I thought it would make a nice Christmas present, but I simply don't have enough money to afford it." She eventually got to me, and I just politely declined. Now, for context, I'm currently wearing my uniform from work. I don't know why she didn't take my answer at face value, but she continued to accost me, wanting to use my identification, and even went so far as saying that I could use my work ID, and then she pointed at my chest. Now, I happened to glance down in the bag to see the items that she was attempting to return, and it was one of those high-cost electric razors. You know the kind. The ones that have the self-cleaning base that cost about $200. I also noticed that the packaging still had the anti-theft security device wrapped around the box, so it became pretty obvious that this woman had grabbed a plastic bag and then proceeded to take the item off of the shelf, put it in the bag, and pretend that she was trying to return it, when in all actuality, she was attempting to get free in-store credit or cash from this return. I very discreetly leaned over to her ear, and I said that I know what you're trying to do, so why don't you just go ahead and put that razor back on the shelf where where you found it. Well, when I said that, she got very angry with me.
How dare you accuse me of stealing? I'm just trying to make a nice Christmas for my family.
So, in a not-so-quiet voice, I said to her out loud, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't help you return your item that is still in the packaging with the anti-theft device still on it." Well, when I said that, several people in line realized what she was attempting to do, and they all started laughing. The entitled Karen, in a huff, left the rest of the line alone and proceeded to the men's hygiene aisle where the electric razors were kept. And I can only assume that she was going back there to put it back on the shelf and hopefully never make this kind of stupid decision ever again. Yeah, that lady was 100% trying to steal. And also, she's not very good at it because, like, seriously, the anti-theft device was still on it. What was she expecting? For them to be like, "Oh yeah, let me just give you money for this"? Like, wouldn't that be a giant waving red flag that yes, she is absolutely trying to steal? Like, she clearly did not think this through at all. So good for you on your response, because seriously, that lady was completely out of her mind if she really thought that anybody was going to give her their ID. Because I know if I was in that situation, I absolutely would have said no, because what she was asking for is just completely insane. Am I the jerk for not signing my name off of my mom's house until I got paid by my sister? Because right now she's calling me money hungry, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my mother passed away suddenly about a month ago. It was a very shocking, traumatizing, and emotional situation, which I am sure is adding to all of these issues. She left her house to my older sister and myself, and I took 2 weeks off of work to help go through all of my mother's belongings and to try and coordinate the entire memorial. My sister moved into my mother's house shortly after my mother's passing, which we agreed on, and the other half of the agreement between us and our mother before she passed was that she was going to pay me half of the house's value, and this was also the agreed terms if I moved into the house instead. I have since informed my sister that I don't want the full half of the house's value, and instead I would be fine with about 25%, including the $11,000 my mom loaned me before she passed away. But here's the thing, she is asking me to sign my name off of the house's deed before she has even refinanced the house and paid me my portion. She is calling me money hungry and basically painting me as the villain when this was the expected and legal agreement the entire time. My husband and I could desperately use the money too, as we purchased my grandmother's house after her passing, and doing so put us into a lot of debt. Not that this really has any bearing on the situation at hand, but it seriously would help. So am I the jerk for not signing my name off the deed right away until I get paid? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, that's the exact same way I would handle it. She's only calling you money hungry because she wants your name off the deed. Like, the way she's acting is super sketchy, and I just wouldn't trust that entirely. So no, I think you're doing this all completely right, and if I was in your shoes, I would handle that the exact same way. My best friend constantly sleeps with married women, and recently crossed a line last week that has left me completely stunned and shocked at his behavior. And now, as a result, I am cutting him off as a friend and choosing to never deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my best friend has a thing for married older women, and over the years, he has had surprising success in this area. It started when he was 18 years old and slept with a married 30-year-old woman with a kid. They were both waiters at a restaurant, and after months of flirting, she slept with him. In the 7 years since, there have been 12 of them, all married or engaged, with ages ranging from 30 to 52 years old. Now, in the beginning, I thought the whole thing was funny, but as the years have gone on, I have grown completely disgusted by this behavior. If we are at a bar and he sees a bachelorette party, he's over there hitting on the bride-to-be. He coaches his nephew's little league team just to meet the moms, and he's had to leave 3 different jobs because he was sleeping with married coworkers, and all the husbands found out, leading to confrontations while he was on the job. Now, the last straw for me was last week. I recently got engaged, and my fiance's family threw us an engagement party. It wasn't a surprise, so my fiance and I both invited who we wanted, and one of the people I wanted there was one of my former managers at work. Let's call him Tom. Tom is not his real name. Now, I am a CPA at a big firm, and Tom was really a mentor to me when I started. He left to work in the industry, but we kept in touch and we are still close. Tom is 40 years old and is just the nicest guy you will ever meet. So he and his wife come to the engagement party. I had never met his wife before, but she is absolutely beautiful. And at one point during the party, I see my friend talking to Tom's wife, all while Tom is taking a phone call. I immediately go over and interrupt the conversation, and I pull my friend aside and tell him not to even think about it, to which my friend says that he wasn't going to, which was absolute BS, but I thought he took my warning seriously. seriously, but unfortunately, I was completely wrong. A few weeks later, Tom calls me and tells me that his wife has been acting strange ever since the engagement party, and he went through her phone and found text messages with another guy. And these messages included scandalous photos, if you know what I mean, and they were exchanged on both sides. So it was very clear that they had met up and spent some quality time together. Tom had confronted his wife the night before, and of course, it was my friend who she'd slept with. Well, Tom was devastated. He was crying on the phone, and he wasn't even angry. He just wanted to know why she did it, and was asking me to talk to my friend to get some more details. Well, I called my friend right after I got off the phone with Tom, and I basically exploded on him, ending our 20-year friendship just like that. Well, fast forward and it's been a week, and my friend hasn't stopped apologizing. Other than his despicable behavior with married women, he has been a really good friend to me. We have been like brothers ever since kindergarten. It hurts to throw away someone who has been such a big part of your life, but I just cannot be party to this anymore. I mean, am I making the right decision here? What should I do? Yeah, I think you're absolutely making the right decision. There is no way I would ever want to stay friends with that guy, especially after he broke up a marriage. Like, this Tom guy is completely devastated. He is torn to pieces because his wife was unfaithful, and it all begins and ends with the original poster's friend. Like, they just willingly ruined another marriage. Like, this is just nasty across the board. Like, there is no good excuse for this. So no, I don't blame you for breaking off from this guy, because if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have cut this guy off as well. An entitled jerk freaks out at my job and treats me like garbage, all because he doesn't get his way. So I decide to get some revenge by forcing him to apologize to me if he ever hopes to secure the reservation that he's trying to get. Here's what happened. So I own a store that's in the same building as a real estate office that rents beach houses on a small island. Now, we are open later than the real estate office, so they leave late check-in packages with us for their clients to come in and pick them up. Now, payment is due when they pick up sometimes, and payment must be with cash or a certified check. No personal checks or credit cards are allowed after hours. There's also no major chain hotels after 9 p.m. as everything is closed. Now, here's the thing. The clients are very informed on these policies. I mean, I hear the agents making the reservations when I'm in the office. Well, this is where our entitled jerk enters the story. He comes in to pick up his check-in package. I open the envelope and pull out the bill, which is right when he pulls out a personal check. I say to him, "I'm sorry, but we don't take personal checks." He hands me his confirmation, and I point to the bold print at the top of it that informs him of the payment policies. And it states quite clearly that we need certified checks or cash only. And when I say this to him, this guy loses his mind. He looks at me and says, "Do you know who I am?" I look at his paperwork and I say, "Sure, you're Mr. John Doe." And no, of course that's not his real name. He then starts in by saying, "You will take this check. And you know what? I could buy and sell you 10 times over, kid," as well as swearing at me multiple times and making personal insults towards me. Well, when he did this, I calmly put the keys and paperwork back in the envelope. I lean into him very close and calmly, and I quietly say to him, "There's an ATM at the corner. Once you have the cash and you apologize, you can have the package. Until then, you need to leave my store." Now, I was much larger and younger than he was, so he eventually got the picture and left. 20 minutes later, his wife comes in with the cash, but I inform her that was only half of the deal. She says to me, "He's a very proud man. He's not going to apologize." I say to her, "Well, I don't care if he's the Queen of England. I hope your car's comfortable because I give respect on the same level that I receive it." Well, after that, she must have given him an earful because 15 minutes later, he came in to give me the cash, he apologized, and then they went to their beach house. Now, he certainly wasn't happy, but maybe, just maybe, he learned a little bit of humility. That way, the next check-in person doesn't get the same kind of treatment. And no, the real estate office wasn't mad once they saw and heard the video of the interaction, because we laughed about that literally for over a month. Yeah, that entitled jerk was completely out of line. Like, who would go to a check-in person and be like, "Oh, I could buy and sell you 10 times over, kid"? Like, is that supposed to make me want to serve you better? If anything, it makes me do exactly what the original poster did. Tell you to get out and that I'm not going to serve you, and that I hope by doing so, I ruin your vacation. So honestly, I love the karma that came this guy's way, as he was forced to apologize and pretty much swallow his pride. Because you know for a fact he didn't mean it, but he had no choice but to do it if he ever expected to get that stupid beach house, and I find that hilarious and completely deserved. My spoiled, entitled brother throws an absolute fit when he finds out I bought a house before him, and now he's demanding that I allow him to move into my house, claiming that he has a rightful spot in my house simply because he's my brother. And I'm honestly so exhausted dealing with my brother that I'm now at a crossroads, and I seriously seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I suddenly became a homeowner some time ago because a friend of mine's grandfather was moving to Florida and his house was ripe for the picking. I knew the old man really well, as he passed away a few months later from a sudden stroke. Anyways, he offered the house and property to me for $200,000, and I practically ran to the bank to apply for the loan. The house is a manufactured house from the 80s, but it was remodeled repeatedly by the former owner and has a separate garage building. The home and property could have gone for more, but he offered the house to me because he knew I would take care of it. I had $30,000 saved that made a good down payment, and I was very happy to leave my apartment. I mean, I wanted to move out of there eventually anyways, especially after what my cheating ex did, but that's a story for another time. So, when my brother found out that I bought a house, he went absolutely bonkers. For reference, my brother has a repeated history of copycatting me for the past decade, but when it comes to this, there was no way in the world he could copycat buying a house, especially with his terrible credit and his inconsistent income. And it's then that he got into an argument with me over how I was just trying to make him look bad by doing something that he couldn't. But that really is not the case. I literally just wanted the stupid house, and the price was too good to refuse. Then he told me I should have turned it down, but he literally had no good reason. I mean, I could practically see the screws getting looser with every single dumb excuse he made as to why I shouldn't have done it. But I pointed out that all of those excuses were just there because I did something that he currently can't. And when I bought this house, it had nothing to do with him. I just wanted to be a homeowner for the security and the extra space. And I finally don't have to store my camper at my parents' house, along with that garage that I can store stuff in and tinker in. Now, he's been copying me over so many stupid things. For example, if I bought a camper cot, he would buy the same thing. If I went to the gym, then he would go to the gym. If I bought a truck or alcohol or a TV, or if I bought a camper or a used portable DVD player, or if I went camping in a specific spot, he would literally do the exact same thing across the board. It literally didn't matter what I was doing, he was always tagging along. I mean, he acts like a complete child on so many things. Well, after weeks of openly fuming about me being a homeowner, my brother suddenly acted like he had another brilliant idea. He wanted to move in with me, and when he said that, I just laughed at him. He then ended up demanding that I rent one of my rooms to him. And the really funny part is that he only wanted to do it for $200 a month with utilities included because he shouldn't have to pay any more than that since we're family. Well, he flipped his lid when I said absolutely not. Then he got our parents involved again, although this time they actually sided with him first, even though it was mainly our mother. She and my brother showed up to my house demanding that I let my brother move in, and my brother had this awful grin on his face that I could tell he thought he was getting his way, all thanks to Mommy Dearest, but I literally screamed no to both of their faces. My mom started to cry and said that I was being a jerk, so I called my dad, and he told my mom that he had warned her that I wouldn't do it, and that they need to leave me alone. My mom whined that my brother was living out of his camper next to a shabby house that he was renting space from, but I said that wasn't my problem to fix. And my brother, by the way, has proven countless times that he cannot be trusted. My brother was fuming to the point of being red with veins popping out of his neck, and my mom tried one more time to convince me with tears, but that just made me even angrier. I then went on a rant that was something like this: so you can't buy a house, but you wanted to invade mine? I refuse to ever live with my brother again. I would sooner live in the woods without electricity than ever live with him. He's intentionally irritating, and if I had him as a roommate, I just know that he would steal my booze, he would take all my stuff, and invade my privacy non-stop. That is not going to happen. And I do not care how much mom is gonna cry. That is not gonna work on me. Well, when I said that, my mom broke down and finally conceded that she was never going to convince me to allow my brother to move in. She even had to take my brother by the hand and leave my property with him because he initially refused to go and kept begging her to turn back and make me let him move in. I then yelled at him that it was hilarious that he called me a mama's boy before because he had become exactly that, and that this was just like one time when he tried to get our mother to make me trade vehicles with him, all because he felt ashamed to be driving a minivan. My brother then yanked away from mom and then started swearing at me. Eventually, after some back and forth between the two of us, my mom got in front of him and told him to just go. Then he drove off in his rattle-can Silverado without her, which by the way, he had driven her there. So then I had to take her home. While taking my mom home, I made things very clear with my mother over why I could never trust my brother ever again, and how his life was not my burden to bear. I then told her how little my brother was offering for rent anyways, which is something he conveniently had not told her. Now, fast forward, and I later rented that same room to one of my best friends for $600 a month, and he pays for his own utilities. The other 2 rooms are my bedroom and a home office, and there's an extra room in the separate garage as well. And wouldn't you guess it, my mother tried to make me let my brother live in the garage instead. She says there's enough room in the storage room for a bedroom, but again, I said absolutely not. But simply out of spite, that has been turned into another friend's rented room, as I just remodeled it with some plywood. And yeah, I rented them out of spite. And that's because I didn't want my brother to live with me in any capacity. My brother later ended up having a complete meltdown in front of our parents over how he's the older brother. He should be the one who owns a house first. He's supposed to be successful, and I'm supposed to be the big loser in his shadow. Our dad then poked him with his cane and told him that this is not how life works, resulting in a massive argument. They told him to get out and not come back until he's cooled off, learning right then and there that he's just being pointlessly jealous. But I'm honestly so sick of my brother, and I seriously hope I don't have to deal with him in this way ever again. Wow, your brother sounds absolutely pathetic. Who would show up to their sibling's house and be like, no, I want to move in. You have to let me move in. I demand it. Like, what the original poster is describing is really, really sad. Like, who in their right mind would act this way? Like, seriously. So truly, good for you for standing your ground and telling pretty much everybody to get lost, because the original poster's brother sounds absolutely unhinged. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My extended family is furious with me and is claiming that I stole a family name that my grandmother offered me, claiming that I had no right to use it since I'm not a blood-related family member. And now, despite my grandparents and my father defending my good name, my entire extended family is against me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my dad is not my biological dad, but he's raised me since I was 7 months old. My biological father was in and out of my life, and he was not good to me at all. I never really wanted him around, but I had such a good relationship with my dad. I knew love and family with my parents over the guy who just wanted to mess with my mom and just wanted to stop me from being adopted and would never show me any kind of interest as his own flesh and blood. Now, I have younger siblings from my parents. My dad has siblings, nieces, and nephews, and both of his parents are alive, and I'm so close to his parents. My grandparents never saw me as less than their grandchild, meaning that blood and legality never mattered to them. I was one of theirs, and they were my granny and grampy, and the name Grampy was born from my inability to say grandpa as a really little kid for some reason. Well, fast forward and I got married to my amazing wife, and my wife and I are now expecting a baby girl. My grandma approached us and said that she wanted to make it clear that if we wanted to, and there was no pressure from them, we could consider using the family girl name for our daughter. It's a name usually used in the middle name, but every few generations, it gets used as a first name and usually goes for the first granddaughter. My wife and I love the idea, and we love the name. So we decided to use it as a first name, which made my grandma so happy, and my dad actually cried when he heard it. But the other members of my extended family were not so pleased, and I was accused of stealing the name from the legitimate first granddaughter, which is the one who would be blood, and I was apparently stealing it from my cousins, who should have been first in priority to use the name. Well, my grandparents and my dad came to my defense, and they said that my daughter and I are legitimate members of this family, so I didn't steal anything. My grandma even said that she offered it to me, but my extended family said that I should have had common sense and the compassion to understand that I'm not actually a blood member of the family, and that neither is my daughter. Well, because of that, a fight broke out over all of this, and I know that most of the extended family firmly blame me for agreeing to use the name. So honestly, am I the jerk for listening to my grandma and taking the name that they offered me? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, of course you are not the jerk. Your grandmother offered you the name. Like, literally, why on earth would they be upset over the grandmother making a decision? Like, what is wrong with these people? That is so weird to me. And the fact that they're trying to be like, oh, you're not really a member of the family because you're not blood related. It's like, oh, okay, now I really know how you feel about me. Apparently, all these years beforehand were just a complete act, because right now your true colors are showing quite clearly. Like, that's insane to me, and that is so unacceptable. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, and the fact that your extended family is acting this way and trying to blame you, in my opinion, is completely toxic and so uncalled for. Am I the jerk for being upset about the pay I received after I was a DJ for my friend's wedding? Because right now, my friend has blocked me and we're not even talking anymore. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, so I'm a 21-year-old female, and I had been friends with this girl who's also also 21 for about 2 years, and we were decently close. She was getting married and she asked me if I would be her DJ for her wedding. Now, I am a hardcore music head, and I am a great playlist maker, but I've never DJ'd before. I agreed to do it, but I wasn't thrilled that I wouldn't get to enjoy her wedding fully. She said that she would pay me for my service, which I thought, okay, fair enough. But because she is my friend, I didn't discuss actual pricing because I just assumed that she would pay me fairly. I brought my own equipment as well as my friend's equipment to make a full setup, and I needed 2 setups since one of them would be for the ceremony and the other one would be for the reception. She pre-made a list of songs that she wanted while people were eating at the reception and made sure to tell me that I can't deviate from it at all. She was very restrictive of what I could play for dancing because she wanted no rap or hip hop or even any country music. I mean, I had to send her the pop songs in advance just to see if she approved of them, and even still, people weren't dancing to the music that she chose. So I went out to the dance floor for the cha-cha slide. I knew how long the song was and I only danced for the first minute, and I got everybody involved in dancing. Then my friend's speaker setup malfunctioned and the music cut while I was on the dance floor. The bride cut her eyes at me and said in the most bridezilla tone, "Why is the DJ on the dance floor?" And she said this in front of everyone. And right at that moment, I felt so small. I did end up fixing the problem, but the issue was something out of my control, and it would have happened anyways. Also, the song The Wobble was heavily requested by everybody there, to which I had to keep saying no because she told me that I couldn't. Now, I let the bride know that this was being heavily requested, but she said to me, "If you play that song, you won't be getting paid." So I said to myself, cool, we're not gonna play The Wobble. By the end of the wedding, I was upset because of the way she treated me, and the fact that I was stuck behind the DJ booth the entire wedding by myself, directly in the hot sun without shade for 4 hours straight. And you know what? She rode off into the sunset without paying me. And then I got a message from her after her honeymoon saying that she has my money when she got back. And you know what she gave me? She gave me a gift card with $15 on it. And after that, I was pissed off. She told me she didn't have a lot of money after paying her photographer friend $1,000 and paying for her other wedding things. Also, I was told that this was never supposed to be a payment, but a gift of appreciation, and that as her friend, I should have done it for free. That she saw this as an opportunity to start my DJ career, and that I should be grateful for the experience. When I confronted her about this, I was told that I was a bad friend for ruining her wedding day, because when she thinks about her wedding now, it will remind her of how she lost a friend. She then gave me $75 and unfriended me on everything, and now we don't even talk anymore. So seriously, was I the jerk for complaining about my pay? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. She mistreated you at this wedding. She was so aggressive towards you the entire time, and then she has the gall to be like, "Oh, I was trying to help you start your career. You should be grateful for the exposure. If you were a good friend, you would do it for free." It's like, what are you talking about? That is insane. Like, where did she even get this idea that you're trying to be a DJ? Like, if anything, she's only saying that to try and guilt trip you for even saying that you want to get paid for your time. Like, the money issue should have been worked out far in advance, which is a mistake I think you won't be making twice after this. But for her to basically be like, "Oh yeah, you should do it for free," especially after the way she treated you, that is insane in my opinion, and there's just no good excuse for that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because your friend treated you like garbage, and that in my opinion is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for leaving dinner early, all because my sister was over an hour late once again? Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I had plans to go out to dinner with my sister since this is something that we do every single month. She lives in my hometown, and I live in the next state over with my boyfriend. We are about 35 minutes to an hour apart depending on traffic, but we agreed to meet closer to the hometown with my mom. Now, when it comes to my sister, she is always late. I expect she'll always be at least 30 minutes late, but it's even been up to a few hours. And not just random plans. I'm talking like weddings and graduations too. It's been brought up in the past by my mom and I, but she always brushes it off and gets upset. My boyfriend drove me over, as I can't drive, and he offered to drop me off before he headed out for plans of his own near the house, and then he would come back when he was done. And I assumed that after dinner, we would just hang out at her house either way. I get to the place and I start calling my sister. I get my mom a few minutes later, and she says they're behind because it took a while to get my 1-year-old nephew ready, and my sister got in the shower later than expected. I didn't even know my nephew was coming, and she usually tells me if he is. Her husband was apparently there to let mom in when she showed up, but went back to sleep as soon as she got there. Now, I'm not sure why he couldn't get the baby ready, but that's none of my business. I check maps and it says 35 minutes, and if you add in getting the baby strapped and secured, and then putting him in either the stroller or the front carrier on her body, I was looking at maybe 40 minutes. And to top it all off, we had a reservation that she made, not me. I had never been to this place, and I didn't know if it was one of those places that don't let you have the table if your whole group isn't there. There was really no space to wait inside, so I would have to stand outside and wait for her. But anyways, I didn't feel like sitting alone for 40 minutes, even if I could. Now, she doesn't keep her friends waiting this long when they make plans, and I don't get why it's okay to do this to me and my mom. Now, I'm speaking to mom as they're trying to change the reservation online, but at that point, I'm just fed up. If we agreed to be there at a certain time, be there at that time. 5 or 10 minutes late is fine, but not this. I told my mom that I'm going back home. I didn't feel like fuming at the table and acting like I wasn't mad when they got there, which is something that I've had to do several times before. When I said this, she sounded hurt and mad, but said that it was fine and that she would go home as well. Since then, I haven't spoken to my sister, and this was a few weeks ago, and my mom doesn't want to get in the middle of it, but I told her I wasn't speaking to her until I get an apology. My mom told her that she can't keep doing this on the ride back home, and she agrees that it's an issue, but won't say anything else. It's ridiculous to just always be late because you're bad at time management. She also wants to use the excuse of, oh, but it takes so long to get the baby ready, which I would accept if it wasn't for the fact that this has been a problem long before my nephew was even born. So I really need to know if I'm the jerk for leaving early, because right now I'm still upset and I don't know what to do. It really sounds like your sister is doing this almost on purpose, or she just literally doesn't care about your time. And both situations, in my opinion, are not good, because I am right there with the original poster. If we are scheduled to be somewhere, you had better show up. If you're showing up almost an hour late, that shows to me immediately that you don't care about me, and you definitely don't care about any kind of commitments of any kind. So I don't blame you for getting up and going home. Like, I wouldn't want to stay there for an hour. And I think like 5 or 10 minutes late is not a big deal, but to consistently be almost an hour late every single time you do anything together, that in my opinion is completely unacceptable, and I think the fault absolutely falls on the sister. My boyfriend is stressing me out beyond belief, as he claims that I don't actually care about his situation, where he's grieving the loss of his uncle. But despite the fact that I have a lot of things going wrong in my own life, my boyfriend is demanding that I drop everything that's going on around me and only focus on him in his time of need. And right now, I feel very overwhelmed and I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my boyfriend's uncle passed away this week after a long battle with cancer, and his family is in complete disarray. It was his father's brother, and his dad is really broken right now. Now, I'm having a hard time at home as well, as my mother's electricity has been cut off for a $4,500 bill that we just can't afford. My mother is on disability, and that is her only income. I also have a part-time job, which doesn't pay me nearly enough. My mother and I also take care of my niece, who is my sister's daughter. We do this because she is almost a deadbeat and couldn't care less if the child has ever eaten or even taken a bath. We also watch over my 80-year-old grandmother who lives with us, so I also have problems at home, making it hard for me to be there for him right now. When his uncle passed away, I left work just to be there for him and his family, and I wanted to make sure I could console him in a time like this. I've done everything I can for him, as I have also went through a close family death when my father died. I stayed at his house all day consoling and helping, but I am a grown woman with obligations and responsibilities too. I also have a life, and eventually I had to go home to check on my household, as I'm like the man of the house. My mother, my niece, and my grandmother have no one but me. I do everything that they can't get done, and I take care of them since my father passed. I have to be there, and I can't spend all my time with him. I had to leave his house to take my niece to her dad's house, and then drive my mom to the local welfare to help her with paperwork, just so she can get her electric bill paid off. He makes me feel as if I don't care because I had to leave to help my own family, and I can tell he's mad at me by the way he acted when I told him I have to leave. He says to me that he doesn't want me to leave and that I'm leaving just because I don't want to be around him, and the way he said that was just so insensitive to my situation. He is now being very short with me over text messaging, as well as taking long periods to respond, and overall being vague towards me when I'm trying to be loving and comforting, and I just don't understand him. For reference, this also happened 3 weeks ago when his dad was having surgery and had some minor complications, and he was just freaking out over it. I was at home with my niece with no one else, as my mother was also out of the store. My niece was throwing up profusely as she had caught the stomach bug. I couldn't just leave her there because she's 7 years old, and my grandmother can't watch her anymore. So when I finally made it to his house afterwards, he was so mad at me for not dropping everything and coming to his aid, but I physically and morally couldn't do it at the time. It wasn't my fault. I mean, my baby was sick. I wasn't leaving her to to go comfort a grown man who has family around him. When I'm like that, you need to drop everything for me. I would do it for you. You need to come to me. I need you when things like that happen. And still, when I explained to him the reason why I couldn't come right away, he still said that he didn't care. I feel as though he relies on me for all of his happiness and healing, but I am just one person. I can't help him all the time. He's been acting like my problems and issues just don't really matter, and it's really adding so much stress to my already stressful life. So seriously, am I being gaslit or manipulated, or am I just not doing enough for him? What should I do? I think this really is a catch-22, because on one end, I think obviously you're not doing anything wrong, like you're showing up as much as you can and you're being there for him, but the way he's reacting is just not fair. Like, I totally understand he's going through the grieving process, and his uncle probably meant a lot to him, but it's almost like he's taking that out on you, and that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. You are not the enemy here. You're doing the best you can with your circumstances, and I think it would be unreasonable for anyone to be there 24/7. And just because you can't be there all day every day doesn't mean that you don't care about him and that you're not there for him. So in my opinion, I think his expectations for you are just completely out of line. I think the way he's acting is completely unreasonable, and in my opinion, I don't think you've done anything wrong to warrant this kind of behavior. An entitled jerk shoves my 4-year-old son out of the way, all because he was standing in the trail that we were hiking on. But when that happened, I saw red, as I taught this entitled jerk a lesson that he would never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was out for a hike with my son and my dog. It's rainy and slightly windy, but it's just a lovely day to be in the woods. There's bright green needles and leaves against a gray sky, and there's wildflowers bursting up through it all. My son finds a snail on a tree and he is absolutely stoked. We're looking at it, talking about its shell, its slime, as well as what it's doing and why it's there. It's a narrow section of the trail, so we're over on the side, and my dog has her face buried in the bushes. And it's right at that magical moment with me and my son that the entitled jerk of this story comes storming around the corner. I see this guy coming up with his dog, and my son sees a big chocolate lab, so he gets all excited about the big dog, and he happily invites them over to see the snail that he got. My son is standing in the middle of the trail now, and he's looking at this guy and telling him to look at this snail that he got. Now, I'm not sure what my son was gonna say next, but this entitled jerk actually pushes my son out of the way. Mind you, my son is 4 years old, and he's literally asking this guy to see a snail that he found on a trail on a Sunday morning. Now, when that happened, I immediately blocked his way. I looked at him and I said, "You need to apologize to my son right now." This entitled jerk looks me in the eye and says,
He can't just be standing in the middle of the trail.
and when I say I saw red, I am being completely serious. I got a little bit closer and I spoke more clearly. I said to him, "You pushed my son, apologize right now." When I said that, I'm pretty sure this guy was not ready for this level of confrontation, so he immediately backs down. He mumbles an apology and then takes off as fast as his stupid legs can possibly move. And it makes me wonder, does this guy like own the trail for some reason? I mean, where is he going that he can't politely ask a child to move? What is so pressing that he can't wait for a child to move out of his way? I'm honestly so astonished by this guy's entitlement, and he better hope he never sees me on that trail ever again. Yeah, that guy had some serious nerve to push your kid out of the way on a trail. Like, seriously, what is wrong with some people? Like, there is a myriad of different responses this guy could have made to this kid being like, "Oh, look, I've got a snail." He could have just kept walking and said, "Oh, that's cool, buddy, but I'm in a hurry." Or he could have stopped and humored the kid like any normal person would. But to literally push him out of the way like that is crazy to me, and there is no good excuse for that. But in the end, I love the way the original poster reacted, because that's exactly how I would have reacted. If I had my son on this awesome hike and he found a really cool snail and he was trying to show somebody, and then that person pushed my son out of the way, I think I would have gone bananas. Like, there's no way I would let that slide. So good for the original poster for standing up for their son, because this entitled jerk clearly was used to getting away with toxic stuff like that. And it's about time that they realize that their actions are definitely going to have consequences. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend gets mad anytime I spend money, and has even gone as far as calling me a parasite anytime we get in an argument. And right now, I'm very hurt and very confused, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been together for 3 years, with plans to get married and save for a home, although we currently maintain separate residences. I relocated to be closer to her, moving 30 minutes away from my workplace. Previously, I lived in the city without a car, which necessitated her driving to see me. Anticipating that we'd spend a lot of time at my place as we had before, I rented a large luxury apartment. However, we ended up spending more time at her condo. We've agreed I'll move into her condo once my lease is up, as we continue to primarily stay at her place. Now, we've reached some agreements, such as moving my furniture into her condo, and my cat has essentially made it her home as well. Nonetheless, when my girlfriend becomes upset, her attitude towards me staying at her place fluctuates. Mostly she is welcoming, and other times, she uses it as leverage during conflicts. She tells me to take my belongings and move out, and calls me a parasite, accusing me of being financially dependent on her. This situation is quite stressful and unsettling for me, and despite earning twice as much as my girlfriend, I'm facing accusations of financial dependency, which only adds significant stress about expenses. She points out that I'll never be able to save enough for a house, and frequently mentions that I don't contribute for rent or utilities. But then she forgets about my other expenses. For example, just the other day, I purchased her a business ticket worth about 4 months of her mortgage. She criticizes my spending habits, even for essential expenses like medications, or even meals during work, or when I need to work from a coffee shop. This creates a challenging environment where financial contributions and personal spending become sources of contention rather than a cooperative discussion. I've tried to address these issues openly and constructively, pointing out that our decisions have been made jointly, and I've even explained how it was essentially her decision that I continue to lease out my apartment. Right now, I'm scheduled to move in with her in the next few days, and we've agreed to have our own expenses just so our fights over our finances can finally come to an end. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you are absolutely not the jerk. Your girlfriend is calling you a parasite. Like literally, what is she doing? Like, does she just not want you to move in with her or what? It seems like anytime there's some kind of fight between the two of you, she's the first one to try and turn it on you and be like, wow, you're depending on me financially. You're just a parasite. Like that, in my opinion, is a giant red flag, and that is not something I would ignore. Like that would even make me question wanting to move in with her in the first place. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think you really haven't done anything wrong besides spend your own money, because the way she's acting is absolutely inappropriate, and you do not deserve that kind of treatment in the slightest. My entitled brother and his family moved into the house that we're renting and refused to pay for their half of the rent. So my family and I moved out of that house, but now my parents and my brother are calling me a jerk for not helping out. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I rented my parents' house after they retired and moved south. I paid slightly below market rate, and the plan was for me to save up and eventually buy the house at a great price. They would then give that money to my brother as his part of their estate, and my share was the subsidized rent and the very subsidized purchase agreement. And you know what? Everybody thought this was fair. That is, until my brother's wife started running up debts that they couldn't cover. This led to them losing their home and needing help. Now, I love my brother and my nephews, so when my mom asked me if they could move in, I talked to my husband and we agreed. We are in the process of adopting 2 siblings, but we are still not there. And this was only going to be temporary, so why not? Half off the rent for a few months would totally help us with the down payments and expenses. They moved in February, and when March rolled around, I transferred my half of the usual rent to my parents. But my mom then called us back asking me where the rest of it was. I said that I was assuming my brother was paying for the other half, but nope, that definitely did not happen. I had to pay for all of the rent. I asked why I had to pay for them to stay in my house, and my mom said that it wasn't my house yet and that I was being mouthy. And it was right then that I saw the writing on the wall. I paid the rent and I started looking. We had a good amount saved up, and we didn't need a big old house with lots of maintenance issues that we had been handling. We ended up paying the full rent in April as well, but we moved out and into the house that we closed on, and this was ready for immediate possession. With my husband and I having decent income and 25% down, it all went really smoothly. The only downside is the much smaller yard, but it is a block away from a public park, so we aren't losing that much. Now, I did tell my parents we were leaving. Well, on May 1st, I got another call from my mom, and she wanted the rent, but I said I wasn't living there any longer. She said that I was breaking our deal, but I said that our deal never included me paying for my brother's living expenses. She then said that they couldn't afford to cover the mortgage without my rent, but I told her to get the money from my brother as he was still working. She said that he was still paying his debts, but I said that his wife should also get a job to maybe help out. Well, to make a long story short, she said I was being cheap and vicious to my brother and to my parents. We are settling into our new house house, and for now we are just ignoring them. But I'm honestly wondering if maybe I'm in the wrong, because right now I'm seriously not sure. No, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, you did not sign up to pay for everybody's rent at that house, and you obviously let them in to be a good person and try and help them out. Like, that is your brother after all. So the fact that they took advantage of you and basically said, oh yeah, you're gonna pay for everything, like, that really is unfair, and that really throws you under the bus. So if I was in your shoes, I would have moved out as well. The way you're getting treated is completely unfair, and I don't blame you for getting out of there while you could. My stepdad demands that I lie to my mom when it comes to how I feel about my step-siblings, simply because my mom is unhappy, and that if I lie, I'm gonna make my mom happy again and things will be okay. But when I said no, my stepdad called me selfish, and right now it has me questioning everything, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old female, and when I was 10 years old, I lost my dad. My parents were in a transitional period, as my mom's parents called it, and this was in the weeks prior to his passing. And what I think that means is that they were trying to figure out how to divorce without messing me up. But I thought it was pretty clear my parents' relationship was done. They hadn't seemed happy in so long, and I don't remember them being affectionate with each other. Within a year of my dad passing away, my mom met a guy that we will call Harvey, and they were dating for 2 years when she introduced me to him. Now, he seemed okay, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have my mom dating someone. But overall, it was pretty fine. Mom asked me what I thought, and I told her that he seemed okay and that she was really happy, which was really nice. She asked me if I thought he'd make a good bonus dad, and I told her I hated how that sounded. We talked things over, and she admitted that she wanted to pick someone I could see being the new father figure in my life. She said it didn't have to be an only dad thing, but even if I love someone enough to think of them as a second dad. I told her that wouldn't happen, but I'd be fine with Harvey sticking around and being married to her if she wanted that. We went to therapy, and Harvey eventually joined us, and by the time we were done, I was almost 15 years old, and they were married, and mom was pregnant. My mom had 2 kids in the last 18 months. My half-brother is 17 months old, and my half-sister is 3 months old. Things were kind of crazy when my half-brother was born, so mom didn't do any kind of party or celebration of his birth. Since she and Harvey made sure they won't have any more kids, my mom decided to throw a party to celebrate the kids being born. So this is probably where I should say that I'm pretty indifferent to the babies. I know they are technically my half-siblings, but I don't really feel anything towards them. Honestly, it makes me sad that I was the only kids my parents had together, because I think it would have been nice to have someone who's been there with me, especially through my parents' relationship breakdown, my father passing away, and my mom remarrying and starting a family with Harvey. But I just don't see my half-siblings the way I imagine seeing a full sibling, because we only share one parent. I'm also so much older than them, and our experiences will always be so different. I don't hate them, but I honestly can't say that I love them either. During the party for the babies, I got kind of tired of faking being happy and enthusiastic about it, so I went upstairs for a while and was talking to my best friend. Well, apparently my mom overheard, and she talked to Harvey afterwards and was absolutely devastated because she has realized I don't feel all warm and fuzzy about the babies, and I'm not really happy to have half-siblings. She realized that I do see them as half-siblings, quite literally, and that hurt her a lot because she assumed that I would see them as full siblings. Harvey told me that mom found out, and he told me to lie to her just so mom would think that she misunderstood, also that she could go back to being happy again. But when I said no, I'm not gonna do that, he told me that I'm being so selfish. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for not wanting to lie? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I simply don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, it is incredibly weird that Harvey's trying to make you lie to your mom. Like, for reference, the original poster is a teenager, and in my opinion, I think the way he's going about doing this is completely inappropriate. Like, I really think you're entitled to your own feelings. There is so much to unpack here, and honestly, it's just not fair for him to be like, oh, just lie to her. We want her to be happy right now. It's like, what are you doing? That is so unfair. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think it's incredibly inappropriate for Harvey to try and make you lie. That, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for, and I think that you are in the right for standing up for yourself. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I will never forgive him for missing my high school graduation just so he can go to another event that his stepdaughter is taking place in? Because right now, I am hurt once again that he's choosing her over me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male, and I'm graduating high school at the end of this month, and my dad dropped some awful news on me 2 nights ago that his stepdaughter, who's 14 years old, has an award ceremony for some competition that she entered and won in another state, which happens to be on the exact same day that I'm getting graduated, while saying that she wants him to be there in person. He told me he couldn't possibly make it to both, and since his wife and their children together will be going, he needs to be there too. He told me he would make it up to me and we would celebrate another time. Now, I still live with him, but not for much longer, and my mom passed away when I was 7, and my dad got married again when I was 11 or 12 years old, so it's been a few years as it is. His stepdaughter never knew her biological dad, so my dad has accepted her as his own, and he has prioritized her a lot in the last 5 to 6 years. It doesn't always show in the most obvious ways, but it can seriously be felt. Our father-son time was put on an indefinite hiatus, and instead, Dad told me we needed to include her in our time together, but he also spent time with just her on father-daughter time. I brought it up to my dad, and he told me I wasn't exactly making an effort to be closer to her, so he wanted all of us to bond and didn't want me to just focus on my relationship with him. He has attended her dance recitals instead of my basketball games if they're on the same time. It doesn't matter if mine was known about it first. He will still skip my stuff to go to hers. He will take us on family days, and whenever he and his wife say the kids can choose what they want to do, he picks her choices over mine. He claims it's because they will be the most fun for everybody, but really, he even says it afterwards, anything his little princess wants is what she gets. Our refrigerator and our shower broke at the same time, and his stepdaughter's birthday was coming up, so he took money from my birthday fund just to pay for that stuff, and so his stepdaughter would definitely get what she wanted. For reference, she got this Barbie house thing, as well as a whole fashion set, and I'm pretty sure it cost well over $250. He didn't get all the money back by the time my birthday came around, so instead, he gave me a $30 gift card for Steam when he had promised me a new monitor and keyboard for my computer. And by the way, the computer was a gift from my grandparents. Now, when my dad said he wasn't going to be at my graduation, but instead he was going to go and support her, I told him straight up that there is no way he could ever make up for that, and he can absolutely forget about being included in my life going forward. He told me that he would make it up to me, but I told him I will always come second to his little princess, and I am not going to be okay with that. I told him he's discarded me for the last time. Now, my dad begged me to be reasonable, but I just walked away. Then I invited both sets of grandparents to my graduation, who thankfully agreed to come along. His wife told me that I could have come along with them, and that I don't really need to attend the ceremony, but I could instead support my sister. I said that her daughter's not my sister, and I do not want to support their family anymore, because I'm going to be out of their hair really soon. When I said that, she called me selfish and told me that I can't deny her daughter a dad. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, and you're definitely not overreacting. Graduating from high school is a massive milestone. The fact that your dad wants to go out of state to do another thing that his daughter wants to do, in my opinion, especially compared to this, is completely wrong. Like, this really is not okay, and I don't blame you for being upset. Like, just think about it for a second. His dad has completely neglected him on everything ever since he got married again. And like, I totally understand that he wants to have some kind of relationship with his new stepdaughter, but for him to completely ignore his older son and be like, oh, we've got to work together as a family, like, that is just a cop-out to never do anything his son ever wants to do. Like, it literally seems like there's no compromise when it comes to your stepsister stuff, but instead they always pick her stuff over you. So to that end, I'm so sorry you're dealing with that, but in my opinion, I don't think you're in the wrong, and I think your dad is absolutely making a mistake by going out of state instead of going to your graduation. Am I the jerk for not letting my sister and her kids live in my house simply because it would be too many people and we just don't have the room? Because right now, after I said no, my sister is bad-mouthing me online, turning the entire family against me and making my life a living nightmare. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I'm an electrician. I started my apprenticeship at 17 years old and was hired immediately by my sponsor after I received my license. The reason I chose a trade was that I grew up in a trailer with my mom and my sister, and I have wanted to own my own house since I can remember. And being in the trades gave me access to a stable job and access to more money sooner. My partner, who is 29 years old, she is a plumber, and we have saved a lot of money. In the end, we bought land and built a tiny house in the uptown area of our city. It has 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and one of our bathrooms is a reptile room, since I keep snakes and my partner keeps bearded dragons. We are also child-free and very happy in our home. Now, my sister is a waitress and has 3 kids. Her husband husband just left her for a woman my age, and she is left without his income to raise all 3 of her kids on her own. Her husband bought out her half of the house during the divorce, and that left her and the kids living with my mom in the trailer. I can admit I didn't grow up in the safest of areas and was carrying some form of protection with me when I was a teenager because there was a lot of danger. Now, because of the safety issues, my sister came to my partner and I and begged us to let her and her sons move in. She said we would have to get rid of our reptiles to keep them in our room, her sons could have the other bedroom, and she would sleep in our kitchen on an air mattress. She said nothing about paying rent or helping around the house. Well, when she said all this, I told her no, because 2 toddlers and a little kid who's about to start kindergarten are not suitable to be in our home, and we don't want too many people in our house. She said that we live in a better part of town with better schools, and that she definitely needed the help. I told her we didn't have the room and that I was sorry, but I told her I could hook her up with some journeymen that I know, and she could get started on an apprenticeship that pays better than her current job if she needed extra money. Well, she called my job and my partner's job dirty blue-collar trash, and then she left our home. She then posted online about how we wouldn't let her stay at our house, and now my relatives are messaging me about it. They're asking me how I could let a single mother and 3 kids be homeless, and how they're my blood and that I owe my sister better than this. Now, I feel like a complete jerk, even though my partner told me that I have every right to not want them in our house. So seriously, am I the jerk for not wanting my sister and her kids in my home? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you made the best choice for you and your partner, as it doesn't sound like your house is very big in the slightest. Like, she's not only barking orders at you of like moving your lizards and your snakes around, but also being like, oh yeah, my kids will take the other room and I'll sleep in the kitchen on an air mattress. And it's almost like she wasn't asking if she could do that, but rather telling you that this is what's gonna happen. Like, personally, that would have rubbed me the wrong way, but also it doesn't seem like there's any room for that kind of activity. Like, this is a tiny house and then suddenly there's gonna be 4 more people in this house. Like, that's not gonna work in the slightest, and I don't blame you for saying no. Plus, just look at how she reacted when you told her no. She said that you have dirty blue-collar trash jobs, and then makes you the villain when you say no to her demands. That behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and I don't think that you did anything wrong. My entitled crazy teacher refuses to let me use the bathroom, even though she knew I had a medically diagnosed bladder problem, which forced me to use the bathroom more than other students. But as a result of her cruel actions, she denied me ever having the right to use the bathroom during class, causing me to wet my pants. And as a result, this teacher ended up getting fired. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. So I'm a 24-year-old female, and this story happened when I was 10 years old in the 5th grade. So it was basically at the end of my elementary school experience. Overall, my school life was pretty decent, and I haven't really had many bad experiences, except for this one teacher who we will call Mrs. Jerk. And obviously, Mrs. Jerk is not her real name. When I was a little girl, I used to have bathroom accidents fairly often, and my parents were worried about my health. I was taken to the doctor and I was diagnosed with a weak bladder. This has been and still is a pretty sensitive issue in my life, and I do still have accidents on occasion. Throughout my school life, my parents would always make my condition known to the teachers and principal of the school, requesting that I would be allowed bathroom breaks whenever needed, and this was allowed by the school and wasn't really an issue for the majority of my teachers, who were all very considerate. And it's right about here that Mrs. Jerk enters the story. At first, she seemed to be alright with my frequent bathroom breaks, and it wasn't an issue for a good while. However, one day when I asked to go to the bathroom, she very rudely said to me,
No, your regular bathroom breaks are a constant disturbance in my class, and I will not tolerate it any longer.
Now, I was very sensitive about this kind of thing, and I didn't have the courage to just rush out and go anyways. And it didn't help that I had drank a lot of juice at lunch prior to this class. Well, sure enough, 5 minutes later, the inevitable happened. I wet my pants in class. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't even look anybody in the eye. Mrs. Jerk immediately saw this. She got in my face and said,
You're going to the principal's office for causing a scene.
When she said that, I started to cry and I ran out, crying the entire way there with my pants completely soaked. When I got there, the principal called my mom, and she was understandably angry. And she wasn't angry with me, but rather Mrs. Jerk, as she completely ignored my needs. The principal gave Mrs. Jerk a very clear warning to never do this again, and my mom got me ice cream on the way home. Now, I wish I could say that this was the end of the story, but what Mrs. Jerk did next to me in class has left a scar on me even to this day. So the next day, I was in her class again, and a couple friends that I had in that class comforted me before class started, as I was still horribly embarrassed about the whole thing. When Mrs. Jerk came in, she looked angry and stared right at me, and I felt myself gulp at the moment. About halfway through the class, I needed to go to the bathroom, and I asked her to do so. She got very angry with me, saying that I forgot what she told me yesterday and to never ask her again. Now, I was stunned, and my friends were giving her dirty looks. Now, I was scared of her, and once again, I wet myself in class. And when that happened, Mrs. Jerk absolutely was livid. She started yelling at me for peeing in her classroom. I began crying almost immediately this time, as I hate being yelled at. My friends came to my defense and comforted me, while some yelled back that she should have let me go when I asked to go, and that if she had done that, none of this would have happened. Well, she silenced all of them and sent me to the office again and also gave me detention. When my mom was called this time, she was furious. Mrs. Jerk was called to the office immediately, and my mom laid into her. I remained outside the office while this happened, so I didn't catch most of what she said, but I do know that my detention was revoked as the fault lied with Mrs. Jerk. I love my mom with all my heart since she provides support for my condition and comforts me whenever I have an accident. And she even decided to make me my favorite dinner that night after everything that happened. Fast forward a week later, and I noticed that we had what I assume was a substitute in for Mrs. Jerk ever since that incident went down. I then found out that she had been fired for refusal to adapt to children with specific needs, and apparently I wasn't her first offense. But I'm honestly just happy that I never saw her again and that our new teacher was much nicer. Now, when it comes to my life today, I have been doing very well since that little incident. I do still live with my parents, and while I am trying to job hunt, it's not easy as the number of different jobs that can accommodate for my condition are very few. My mom, being the sweetheart that she is, doesn't put any pressure on me to get a job and says that she wouldn't mind at all if I just stayed with her for as long as I want, which in all honesty, I never want to leave her. When it comes to my social life, I do have one, and all my friends know about my condition because it's one of the first things I tell them when we meet. Sometimes we joke about it, and if I ever have an accident in public, they're always there to shield me from prying eyes. We do laugh about it after it happens, and my shyness and attentiveness as a kid really helped me learn to pick up on social cues. That way, I can tell that my friends laugh with me and not at me. And I'm honestly just so glad that my life improved, especially with the way that I was treated by Mrs. Jerk. Wow, that's an insane situation, and I'm so sorry you went through that. It's so disappointing that some teachers act like this and they just don't believe their students or allow them to have some kind of accommodations. I remember having a few teachers like that when I was growing up as a kid, but never anything this bad. But honestly, it's really cool to see that your mom had your back, and I can only imagine how furious she must have been, because I know if that was my mom, she definitely would have lost her mind on that lady. Like, she would make sure that would never happen again. And it also really rubs me the wrong way that this wasn't the first time that this happened. It sounds like Mrs. Jerk has had it out for other kids in the past, and she's been treating kids like garbage for a while. Like, why would you bother becoming an elementary school teacher if you're not gonna love and respect your students? That is so awful, and she absolutely deserved to get fired. So good for you for moving on from this and finding a life after that incident, because this could have seriously been devastating towards your progress as an adult. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not forgiving my family and wanting to go no contact with them after all the awful things I've endured throughout my childhood and in my adult years? Because right now, my relationship with all of them is incredibly strained, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to give some backstory, I'm a 48-year-old male, and my childhood wasn't great growing up. As kids, my sister and I had to do daily chores, and I know I was on the lazy side because I hated cleaning up the house or pulling weeds outside or even mowing the lawn. But if we didn't get them done, there would be consequences. If we completed our chores, we were given an allowance. And I understand that back in the day, spanking was a very common punishment, so I'm not trying to say that this was unusual. But I will say that my father had and still has an explosive temper, and it's something that he has trouble controlling. So his spankings were probably rougher than they needed to be. I had trouble reading until my dad got me into comic books, and they were thrilling for me, and the perfect escape from what I perceived as my everyday despair. In school, I was the weird kid that really didn't have a lot of friends, and the teachers never really cared for me. I always saw myself as the outcast and the one that nobody wanted. So needless to say, my grades were never really good. A perfect example of my father's temper was when I came home with an abysmal grade. Now, I cannot lie, it was wretched. My teacher had asked me to get it signed by my parents, and I knew that it would be ugly when I finally showed it to them. Unfortunately, Apparently, my father and I were the only two in the house and he lost it on me. He read the score and just stood over me. And that's when things got physical. And he eventually stopped himself, but I was crying uncontrollably. He sat me down at the table and started going over the test paper with me just to see what I had missed and why I didn't understand the questions. Days later, I was sent to stay with my grandparents 5 hours away. And during that time, I came to find out that my dad had self-admitted himself to a clinic to work on his anger. Now, my mother was, in my opinion, incredibly manipulative. She would always overspend, and they would get into a financial crisis. Again, when my father eventually found out, he would explode, and she would end up crying. She would pack us up, and we would stay with her parents for a week or two. Then they would make up, and this cycle would repeat over and over again. There was one instance where she, or rather they, had overspent by a lot, and she asked me to forge my father's signature, also she could cash in on an investment. By this time, I was definitely over 18 years old, and I knew that once my father had found out, I would be arrested and put in prison. So I told her no. Now, when it comes to my sister, she hated me growing up. When it was time to do our chores, I always waited until the last minute. But when I did work, we always fought. She would punch me, spray Windex in my eyes, or just yell at me sometimes every single day. I was the annoying kid brother, but it wasn't all that bad. I mean, she had it rough too, but I always looked up to my sister. She was cool and popular and headstrong, and people loved being around her, and I wanted to be wanted as well. So whenever my chores didn't get done, because I was hiding in my room, I never told my parents about what had happened. Therefore, I received the spanking or I just got grounded. When my parents fought with my sister, she never backed down. Unlike me, who was afraid of consequences, she would instead push forward, and it didn't matter who it was. On the other hand, I was the fixer. I wanted everything to be peaceful. I wanted everybody to get along. I also wanted love and acceptance. I cried when people didn't like me, and I simply didn't understand why I wasn't good enough for other people to like me. I kept being rejected, and it honestly hurt me. Now, when I say I'm a fixer, let me give you an example. When my wife and I were married, my sister had my niece with a guy who we later found out was an addict. She had moved in with my parents, and my parents had just sold their house, so they were temporarily living in an apartment. My sister and the guy she was seeing had gotten drunk and ended up getting into an altercation. She went back to the apartment, and he came soon after, and this is all while my parents were out of town at the time. They then proceeded to get physical, and then the police were called. Eventually, he was taken away, and she called me in the middle of the night, where my wife and I packed up our daughter and went to her. When we got there, it was a very nasty sight, and we spent several hours cleaning things up. Now, I knew I didn't do it, but my father would be angry and possibly try to attack her for all this going on. All the while, she was on the phone with her boyfriend and his parents, and I just cleaned as best as I could while she sat on the phone telling her side of the story. Well, eventually my parents found out and they drove back early, and my father was livid. When he walked through the door, he tried to go after my sister, but my mother held him back, and I decided to stay behind so the situation didn't escalate. When my parents got sick or had major medical issues, such as a heart attack, I would always go to them and try to help out. I would stay at the hospital, I would go to their home and help out around the house, but I finally hit my limit when I, at the age of 42 at the time, went to their house at the beach to help them clean up after a hurricane. I had to work my job during the day, in which I work from home, and then help them clean in the evenings. I had my phone at the table and was looking something up, and my father started yelling at me about how disrespectful it was. He went on this long tirade for 10 to 15 minutes, and I know it's disrespectful that I'm on my phone a lot, but it's my escape. I held in my anger until the next day when I was helping to cut down some small palm trees. I had apparently thrown the brush away in the incorrect container, and I heard all about it. And when that happened, I just broke. I finally yelled back and called my father every name I could think of. And that happened about 4 to 5 years ago, and I really haven't spoken with him ever since. However, there have been 3 major life events that have happened in my family, which have really only happened to my wife, and I feel as though none of them ever reciprocated the same towards me. For example, when my wife was hit head-on by a drunk driver, my parents watched our daughter, but never really stayed with us at the hospital. I was a nervous wreck, but I didn't have anyone there to talk to. She was in the hospital for almost a week because of her injuries and the surgeries that she needed. And yes, I understand that I probably shouldn't make this about me, since it really did happen to her. However, I was young, and I didn't know what to do or who to talk to. A couple of years after that incident, my wife was pregnant with our son. She kept getting very sick and having severe pain, and it turned out that she needed to have her gallbladder removed. While they were doing the surgery, they also found a benign tumor on her liver that had to be removed right then, or there was a chance it could rupture. capture. Once again, I called my parents, but I was essentially left alone at the hospital. The final issue, after I had broken contact with them, was when my wife was diagnosed with an aggressive stage 3 form of cancer. My sister had reached out a couple of months before to try and reconnect and to see if we could actually mend our bond. However, when I called to tell her about my wife, she ghosted us for 7 months. My mother finally reached out via email, asking if she could do anything to help. She said that she had tried to email me before, but said that she had written my email address wrong. She asked if she could help, and I said that I would definitely need help. However, after that initial email to me, she never contacted me again, but did stay in touch with my wife. My wife had to go through daily radiation therapy for the first month, with a chemo treatment at the beginning of radiation and one at the end of radiation. She then had to have therapy, followed by a full hysterectomy, and finally a heavier dose of chemo for several months. She's now taking an immunotherapy, and she should hopefully be done by the end of the year. When we were sitting at the cancer treatment center and my wife was receiving her final chemo treatment, my sister called to let us know that she wouldn't be at my son's high school graduation because she wanted to be there for her sister-in-law's final chemo treatment. She then asked if she needed to send him a card or a present, but I told her no and to not worry about it. The day of his graduation, she didn't even call or text him, much less anything else. She did call him about a month or so later just to ask him if he had any time to watch her dogs so that she could go to Hawaii with our parents. I told him to tell her no, and we haven't heard from her ever since. My mother did reach out to ask us to dinner since she was in town, and she brought some friends, I'm guessing as her emotional support. And trust me, it was an awkward dinner. She tried to hug me, but I could only ever do like this half hug. My wife invited her to our house because she was back in town, and she brought her friends again, and at the end gave me a hug and said that she loved me. But I simply couldn't bring myself to say it back. And trust me, I know how awful that sounds. I've never kept my wife and kids from talking or visiting my parents or my sister. However, I just don't want to do it. I'm just so tired. My parents also don't talk or act towards my wife and kids like they do with me, and my wife definitely notices this. I will say that my wife invited my mother because she is a saint. We were married young and we've grown up together. I wouldn't be the man I am today if it wasn't for the love and support of my wife and my kids. My wife and kids make me want to be better than what I was yesterday. Once, my father told me that I shouldn't expect him to leave me anything when he passes away, which was just another slap in the face to me. So I really just want to know how other people have handled this kind of situation. I mean, how do I let this all go? How do you let go of the hurt, anger, and emptiness? How do you get over your extended family not speaking with you because your parents or your siblings have poisoned them against you? It makes me wonder if I'll ever get over this, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. First and foremost, I just want to say that this really is an awful situation. Your childhood sounds awful, like seriously, you went through some awful stuff with your dad and your mom, and I just can't imagine being in that kind of situation. But also the way they took advantage of you when you were older, and they basically made you fix all of their problems all the time, like that really is unfair, and you definitely did not deserve that. And you also had so much on your plate as well. Your wife had so many medical issues going on, while also having scary surgeries that you're trying to get through, and then here's your family literally not supporting you. And based on what you've described, you are 100% right. It seems like they've never reciprocated anything towards you in the slightest. So honestly, I'm so sorry you went through this, but I can say that I'm glad you have your wife and your kids with you to buoy you up and help you get through these really awful situations. Because from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like your dad, your mom, or your sister were ever really there for you. My creepy entitled uncle is finally being cut out of my life after his wife, who is my aunt, passed away. And after years of dealing with his garbage, I'm honestly so excited to never contact him ever again. Here's what happened. So recently, I was able to finally go no contact with my creepy, awful uncle. And this is because his wife, who was my biological aunt, has now passed away. Now, just to paint a picture of what this man is like, his favorite hobby is mansplaining about things he knows very little about, while standing uncomfortably close to your face, and treats women like we are only put on this earth to serve his needs. Now, here's just a few things that he's done that's led me to making this easy decision. For starters, he threw a tantrum at my undergrad graduation because I didn't make him feel special enough. He was also recently charged with reckless driving for brake checking someone on a motorcycle just to teach this kid a lesson. He also once told me that I'm not fully an adult or able to make any decisions until I'm married to a man. And at the time, I was 25 years old and fully independent. I needed to share some information with him, which I did through text messaging, and he acknowledged receiving said information with a reply text message, but he forgot to relay this information to his wife, which caused a lot lot of drama. And I guess I was mistaken when I said I spoke with him because his generation does not consider texting to mean such a thing. And this is still brought up years later whenever texts come up in a conversation with their generation, but I always ask how they would define texting, but they've never given me a straight answer. When my aunt became too sick to care for their household anymore, he dumped her in a nursing home. We were not allowed to get any medical information, but we were allowed to do things that he considered to be women's work, which is also known as doing all the labor while still refusing to even let us know what care we needed to provide. He often neglected my aunt's care just to spite her sisters. Apparently, he didn't know my aunt required personal care items and that I should give him some grace because he's a man. And apparently, hairbrushes fell into that category when I showed up and she had not had her hair brushed in over 6 weeks. When my aunt passed away, he wrote the obituary, and it was 75% about his career. It made her sound like an accessory in his life rather than being a person of her own. He also put in the background of the obituary an American naval ship, which doesn't even make any sense because neither of them served in the military and were not even American. A few days after she passed away, he called to tell me how wonderful he's doing since I would be so happy to know he's doing well. At my aunt's funeral, he put a picture of himself on the podium, with her only partially visible in the background. And the last time we ever spoke, he bragged about how he's gonna sell his brand new house for $200,000 more than what he paid for it. But honestly, I'm just so glad that I'm now free of that man, because overall, he is a completely awful human being. Yeah, your uncle sounds super entitled. This guy seriously not only says awful comments all the time, but he's always trying to prove a point that he's better than everybody else. He literally treats everybody around him like garbage. Who would brake check a person on a motorcycle just to teach him a lesson? I'm pretty sure this guy should not be teaching any kind of lesson, and the only lesson that he's gonna learn is that when you intentionally brake check someone, they're going to get in an accident, and then this guy's gonna get sued. And he would definitely deserve it. Also, the awful things he says and implies about women is just really disgusting. He's sitting there trying to be oh, you're not fully an adult until you marry a man. But it's what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Especially because the original poster was 25 at the time they said that. That really does blow my mind, and that is so unbelievably sexist. But the icing on the cake of this guy being a complete jerk was the funeral for your aunt, where this guy literally made it all about him. He put a picture of himself on the podium. He wrote the obituary to be a career highlight reel instead of honoring, I don't know, his wife who just passed away. This guy is a grade A jerk. And with all that in mind, I honestly don't blame you for cutting him out of your life. He sounds like a real piece of work, and in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the exact same thing. An entitled Karen freaks out on me when I deliver her pizza to her house 5 minutes early. And as a result, not only did she not leave me a tip, but she also tried to get me fired by reporting me to my manager. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few years ago when I was a driver for a national pizza chain. This entitled Karen calls at around 2:30 p.m. and she explains to the manager that she's having a Bible study at her house at about 3:30 and wants pizza there exactly at that time. My manager explains we can't guarantee exact times, but we can be there within a 10-minute window on either side. So the entitled Karen supposedly agrees and we take the order. Now, it turns out that she's not actually in our delivery area, but she is slightly outside of it. Normally, we would have said no, but she was a little old lady without a car and we were kind of slow. So the manager asked if I would do it. I looked up the address, I saw that it was a quarter mile out of the area, and I just said okay. If anything, the tip would cover the gas. So we take the order and the manager explains the 3:30 situation, and we agree that we'll make the order at 3 o'clock, so it will be ready at around 3:10, and I would be at the house at around 3:25, 3:30. And it was honestly looking like it was going to be perfect. And you know what? Everything works out great. No traffic, every light is green, and I get to the door right at 3:25. Well, when I get there, this 60-something-year-old Karen opens the door and scowls at me. I say to her, "Hello, ma'am, I have your pizza right here." She says to me,
"Why are you here?"
I look down at the delivery slip to ensure that I have the right address. I say to her, "I apologize, ma'am, is this your address?" And then I rattle off her address. She says to me,
"That's my address, but you're supposed to be here at 3:30. Why are you here?"
I then smile and explain the 10-minute window and how I tried to be as close to 3:30 as possible. Well, she then goes on a tirade about how she now has to reheat the pizza because I'm so early, and this is the worst customer service she's ever experienced. Now, at this point, I just apologize and ask if she still would like the pizza. She lets out a dramatic sigh, grabs exact change from the hall table, hands it to me with a scowl that would shame a devil, and I give her the pizza. When I get back to the store, the manager is hanging up the phone. The customer apparently called back to the store right after I left and chewed out the manager about the large, rude driver, who's me in this situation, who arrived too early and so the pizza was cold when her guests arrived for Bible study, who, by the way, were pulling up as I was leaving, when the manager refused to give her credit and informed her that she was not to be delivered to again for apparently calling me rude names over the phone, as well as for bragging about not tipping. This entitled Karen got irate, and she demanded corporate's number. Well, at this point, my manager was fed up, and he told her to look it up on the website. So, the moral of the story is that even if you go out of your way and do a favor for and offer prompt service to some entitled Karen, they will still complain and still not tip you. Wow, talk about being overdramatic. This entitled Karen really freaked out about the original poster being 5 minutes early. Like, it was explained to her early on, especially on the phone, that there is a 10-minute window that they can reach. And you know what? The driver absolutely nailed it. They got lucky with all the lights and the traffic, and they were there 5 minutes early. And it doesn't seem like anything was missed at all. Like, as he was leaving, her stupid guests were rolling up into her driveway. So seriously, what's there to complain about? She got her pizza exactly when she wanted it. But she's pretending like this is some big offense of some kind. And you know what? I guarantee you, if he showed up at 3:35, then this lady would have lost her mind and said, "Oh wow, you're so late to my house." Like, it really seems like she just wants to complain and give this guy a hard time. That is super obnoxious, and honestly, I'm so glad they banned her from ever ordering there again. Because I've learned that entitled Karens who act like this are just unhappy people. And if I was working at that pizza chain, I would be right there with the manager. I would never want to deal with her ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for putting a lien on my brother's house and refusing to remove it until he pays me the $32,000 that he owes me? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I do house renovations as a business. Even when I do work for family and friends at a discount, I have a contract. Well, my nephews are getting bigger and they want separate rooms. My brother asked me to help him finish his basement and make a couple of rooms down there, add a washroom and a kitchenette, and wire up a family room. I priced it out and I said I would charge him $32,000 including materials. And trust me, this was a sizable discount. The bathroom alone, I would charge anyone else about $15,000, and his wasn't even roughed in. Well, long story short, he never paid me. He always had excuses, and I paid for the material and I paid my guys for the work. We did it when I had downtime, so I didn't lose out on other money, but it still sucked to get shafted. So I put a construction lien on the house. He didn't care, and I wasn't gonna make him homeless. Well, this was all 2 years ago, and now that he got a new job, he has to move. And to get a new house, he has to sell his current one, which he can't do because there's a lien against the property. Well, he called me to get it removed. He promised he would pay me as soon as it was sold, but I told him absolutely not. You need to pay me right now. Well, my parents eventually called me, and they told me that they would pay what he owes. And I said I would agree so long as he paid them back, and if he didn't, then any money he didn't pay back had to come out of any inheritance we were getting. And that interest started accruing from the day of the loan. So after working out all the details, they agreed that was fair. My brother called me to scream at me for involving my parents and our inheritance, but I reminded him that he's the one that involved them and not me. He finally took money out from a line of credit and paid me with interest, which in my opinion is completely fine. I am a reasonable man. The house sold over asking price, and the finished basement suite made a huge difference on what he got. But now, even today, he is still upset at me for doing it, but I did everything legally and by the books. So honestly, am I the jerk for putting a lien on my brother's house? Because right now, my parents and his wife are not happy with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Like, your brother is insane for basically stealing $32,000 from you. You literally spent your time and energy making this downstairs basement exactly what he wanted. And instead of paying you, he just came up with excuses and thought, oh yeah, I'll get away with this. Like, that is crazy to me, and there is no good excuse for that. So I think the way you handle this is exactly how I would handle it. So this guy doesn't want to pay you? Okay, well fine. You can now not sell your house until I get my money back. Like, that is completely reasonable, and I think it really is smart in the long run for you and your business. And I also have to say, I love the fact that he has a contract even with family and friends. Like, it doesn't mean he's not going to do this at a discount, but he absolutely wants everything in writing. Like, that is not unreasonable, and in my opinion, that is a very smart business move. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your brother's an idiot for trying to screw you out of that money. And in my opinion, I think you did exactly what you needed to to do to get your money back. Am I the jerk for changing my first name and then keeping that a secret for nearly 5 years? Because now that I've told my parents exactly what I've done, they are so upset with me that now they're refusing to show up to my future wedding. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and my parents decided to name my sister and I after American states. Now, I have permission to share my sister's name, which is Arizona, and I was called Pennsylvania at birth. Yeah, my parents are really weird. I guess they thought geographical names were cool, but I think there's a huge difference between calling your child Arizona or Dakota, or even Paris versus Pennsylvania. They really love America, so maybe they just wanted to be patriotic. For as long as I can remember, everyone has called me Penn or Penny. My parents insisted, though, that everyone was to call me by my full name, but most people could see how ridiculous my parents were being. My sister, who's 28 years old, didn't struggle as much with her name, since Arizona sounds a lot better than Pennsylvania, and the Grey's Anatomy character Arizona Robbins made the name seem quite cool as we got older. Now, I was mocked and teased as a child in elementary school because of my parents' insistence on my full name. They would berate my teachers for letting me write Penny on my work or on my books. So when I was 21 years old, I got my name legally changed to Penelope. Most people I had met in college had assumed that I went by Penny as a nickname for Penelope, and even my boyfriend's mother called me Penelope because I was too embarrassed to tell her that Penny was short for Pennsylvania. I kept it all a secret from my parents and close family because I knew that my parents would go crazy and accuse me of disrespecting their choice. Well, I'm getting married this summer to my lovely boyfriend, who we will call Thomas. And as you all know, you have to say your full name in your wedding ceremony when doing your vows. I knew I had to fess up about the name change because the alternative would be hoping that they would keep quiet when they heard the name Penelope instead of Pennsylvania. I invited them over to my home, and I tried to tell them in a really calm way that I had changed my name, but they freaked out. They said that I was disrespectful and that I was calling their choice dumb, and that now they are refusing to attend the wedding. Now, I know I'm not the jerk for changing my name, but my parents are particularly upset about how I kept it hidden for 5 years before telling them. Most people I know agree with them, and they think that I should have had the courage to be honest with them years ago, so they would have had time to get used to it instead of me dropping the news on them 2 months before my wedding and causing all this drama. A few other family members have dropped out, and my poor sister, who is a maid of honor, is having a nightmare dealing with all of this. My parents believe they had the right to know much earlier. So honestly, am I the jerk for changing my name and keeping it a secret? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, I can understand why you kept it a secret. Your entire life, your parents have ruined your reputation by forcing everyone around you to call you Pennsylvania. You got bullied at school, you got made fun of, and honestly, it seems like that's kind of your parents' fault. If they had just let you put Penny down or Penn as a name, you easily could have been more comfortable with your name and at least given you some kind of autonomy over your life. Anytime you used a nickname or something other than Pennsylvania, they would come down on you hard and be like, no, use your full name. Like, that is an awful way to treat your child, especially when they want to escape a name like Pennsylvania. And yeah, I'm with the original poster. That's kind of a weird name. And I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone by the name of Pennsylvania. I'm just saying in the context, it really does seem messed up. So honestly, based on their previous behavior, keeping all of this under wraps really makes sense. They obviously have a negative reaction to anything you try to do on your own, and they're doing exactly that once again with your wedding coming up. It's almost like they love hearing that name, despite the fact that it caused you a lot of problems in your life. So no, I don't think you had any obligation to keep the name that they gave you, especially when you consider how toxic they were about that name when you were a child. Because in my opinion, it seems like they were always going to be these toxic people in your life. And I absolutely don't think there's anything wrong with changing your name to Penelope. My entitled old neighbors assume that I do nothing all day simply because I work from home. And I'm honestly so tired of these busybodies, and I seriously wish that these people would mind their own business. So I recently moved into a new neighborhood, and the neighbors on 3 sides are old, retired, and very entitled. They are generally nice people and helpful, but also incredibly presumptuous and assuming. One commonality between all of them is that they assume that since I work from home, I do literally nothing all day. In fact, one of them frequently cracks jokes about how I'm able to do whatever I want during my workday. The other day, he called to ask a question, and I happened to be able to shift my schedule to work later in the day, so I could chat for about 30 minutes. So of course, now he assumes that since I can chat for 30 minutes whenever I want, that I just don't do anything at all during my workday. The same neighbor who always talks about how the a guy who lived here before us was constantly working around the yard now states that they don't see me outside nearly as often. Well, newsflash guys, I'm working 2 jobs, and my wife works an additional job, and I'm trying to take on a 3rd side project. We effectively work 4 jobs between 2 people, all while raising 3 teenagers, mind you. And what were the folks who lived here before us doing? It was a retired guy and his wife who never had a job. So it's pretty obvious why they had time to just wander around the yard all day, every day. Another neighbor calls me yesterday to tell me something, and he first asked me if he woke me up. But mind you, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I tell him that I've been up working since about 5:15 in the morning, and when I tell him that, he quickly changes the topic. The same neighbor also assumed that we were rich kids from out of state that had our house gifted to us, when in reality, we spent almost 20 years in a shoebox on the other side of town, also we could save up and move into our dream home. But apparently, we're just lazy kids who are entitled, who simply don't want to work these days, right? Where we lived before, we were mostly in a low-income housing neighborhood with other people around our age, so we never really encountered any of this. But these entitled, old, retired people, they've been wrong about every single assumption. The neighbors the original poster is dealing with is the classic case of people who just need to mind their own business. Like seriously, why are they so obsessed with what you do all day? Like, is it seriously that strange of an idea that someone would work from home? Like, we all went through COVID, right? A lot of people left the office and went home to work. So it's just really weird for anyone to be like, oh wow, I must have woken you up at 9 o'clock in the morning because you do nothing all day. But in reality, you've been up since 5 in the morning. It's not like you're doing nothing all day, like you have stuff that you need to do. And for them to assume that you just had your house gifted to you, that in my opinion would really upset me. That is just straight up insulting. I mean, God forbid anyone save up for a house that is already like overpriced nowadays, let alone move into said house and try to mind your own business. So honestly, good for you for the way you're handling this, because it seems like these people are always trying to take shots at you and your employment. And hopefully one day you can find yourself with better neighbors. Am I the jerk for not getting upset when I was uninvited to my friend's wedding? Because after being treated like garbage by my friend's fiance, as well as her claiming that I'm just trying to steal away her future husband, I have now stepped away and decided that I will not be attending this wedding. And now, as a result, things are very tense in my friend group, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened over the weekend, but there is still so much tension going on. One of my good friends by the name of Matthew is getting married next month to a woman we will call Jennifer. Matthew and Jennifer are not their real names. Now, I'm a 25-year-old female, and I have known Matthew ever since high school. We've both connected when it came to video games, especially when we would play Minecraft. Matthew has had his fair share of girlfriends over the years, but when he met Jennifer 3 years ago, he said that he knew she was the one, and they are madly in love with each other. And I'm honestly so happy for the both of them. Last year, Matthew popped the question to Jennifer, and she said yes. But Jennifer's demeanor towards me drastically changed after the engagement. She was distant towards me, and she wouldn't even look at me, and she would hardly speak to me, which was really weird, since Jennifer was always so sweet and nice towards me. I would still talk to Matthew and meet with him and our group of friends, and sometimes Jennifer would be there, and she would still act cold and not speak to me much at all. So as a result, I kept my distance from Jennifer. Fast forward, and 3 months ago, we all received a save the date invitation, and their wedding is going to take place at Matthew's cabin 2 hours away, and they were going to keep it small due to the size of the cabin. So we were only allowed to bring one guest with us. And it was right then that Jennifer acted extremely harsh and hostile towards me. She said to me, "I bet you don't have a +1 since you are so into my man." And when she said that, I was taken back. I asked her what in the world she was talking about, and she smirked at me and said, "Oh, I know what's going on. You don't need to act stupid around me." Well, I just ignored her remark, and I told her my boyfriend was coming with me. Well, when I said that, she looked surprised, and then eventually she left. Now, I of course told Matthew about what Jennifer said to me, and he was not happy, so he made her apologize to me. Then, last weekend, I was invited by Matthew's sister to go dress shopping with her and Jennifer, and I declined at first because I wanted to keep my distance from Jennifer, but Matthew's sister assured me that she will deal with Jennifer and that our other friends will be there with us. So we go dress shopping, and I found a beautiful dress that I thought would be perfect, so I took a picture and sent it to my boyfriend since he planned on matching with me by getting the right color bow tie. I tried the dress on and it was a perfect fit, so I guess I just got lucky. But Jennifer was angry. She called me horrible names, claiming that I'm trying to steal her boyfriend and that I was officially uninvited from the wedding. In fact, she caused such a commotion that the employee of the store asked us to leave. I told Jennifer that I didn't want to come to the wedding anyways, but I was going to because my friend was getting married. I told her if she didn't want me at the wedding, fine. I don't care since I won't go to a wedding if the bride is going to be so rude to me. Well, Matthew and our friends found out, and I was getting text messages left and right begging me to just come to the wedding. But I told them I was happy to get uninvited and I'll just spend the day with my boyfriend on the day of the wedding instead. But now they're all mad at me for not fighting hard enough. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update. Here's what they had to say. Okay, so my decision is officially final. I will not be going to the wedding and there is no changing my mind about it. And instead, I will be sending a wedding gift to Matthew the day prior. I told Matthew and all my friends that I won't be going, and they simply cannot convince me otherwise. But Matthew also called me and asked if we can talk somewhere else. And I agreed to do this, but it was only so I could tell him in person so that he would know how serious I'm being. Fast forward, and when I met up with Matthew, I brought my boyfriend along with me. And of course, he begged me to come to the wedding, and he said he would beg Jennifer to let me attend. But I told him it's best if I wasn't there. I told Matthew that Jennifer has a problem with me. Period. End of story. He said that he doesn't understand, and he did ask her many times, but Jennifer would continue to say that she was stressed out. At this point, I got angry, and I said that is absolute BS and he knows that. My boyfriend also intervened and said to Matthew that he needs to wake up and realize that Jennifer is crazy and that he can't keep defending her actions. Matthew said that he loves her too much and doesn't want to lose her. Well, my boyfriend and I got up and told Matthew to let us know when he has a backbone. In the meantime, it's best that we just don't talk. I messaged all of our friends in the group to let them know I'm keeping my distance from Matthew because of Jennifer. He is still going to be my friend, but at an arm's length. I will still be sending him a gift regardless, but I'm keeping my distance from Matthew. And it seems like he's in denial and can't comprehend what's going on at all. And ever since he was in high school, he would have a sense of denial, and he's doing that right now. And the weirdest thing about all of this is that Jennifer is nice to all of Matthew's female friends, but just not me. And I've also gotten a message from two of our friends saying that they've dropped out of attending the wedding, all because of Jennifer and the way she's acting. So thankfully, I have somebody on my side, especially when I consider how crazy Jennifer's acting. Yeah, Jennifer sounds incredibly unhinged, and the fact that Matthew is in denial about that is really not good. Like, she is literally coming after the original poster as if the original poster is coming after Matthew and trying to steal him away. Like, that is some weird level of jealousy that I just don't think is normal. I think having some semblance of like healthy skepticism is always good, but for her to act like this, in my opinion, is completely insane. There's no justifying her actions, and the fact that Matthew would even begin to try and back her up is really a red flag for the both of them. Like, where does this line in the sand begin and end? Is he gonna act like this anytime she's just blatantly in the wrong? Because that sounds like an awful situation as well. Like, can you imagine dealing with that, where Jennifer's saying some like outlandish stuff, and Matthew sitting on the sideline being like, oh, I just don't understand why people are mad at her. She's not doing anything wrong. Like, it sounds like he's marrying someone who is completely two-faced, and he really needs to address that now instead of after they get married. So truly, with all things considered, I don't blame you at all for stepping out of this wedding. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Because in my opinion, if someone treats you like garbage, and they treat you like you're a problem in their life, then I think it's important for you to believe them and move on. And when it comes to Jennifer and Matthew, it really seems like this is the case. An entitled Karen demands that she be allowed to cut in line at the grocery store, claiming that she's in a big hurry and she deserves to be in front of everybody else. But when she doesn't get her way, she has a public meltdown in a way that I've honestly never seen before in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was at Kroger yesterday buying some groceries. There were only 2 checkout lanes open, and it was around 5 o'clock p.m., so the afternoon rush was in full swing, and both lines were about 8 to 10 people long. I was in line for one checkout lane, and some mid-30s guy was in the checkout lane next to me. He was the last one in his line, and I was second to last in my line. A woman got in line behind me who looked to be about 70 years old, and you know when you meet someone where you just get a sense that they're kind of a jerk? Well, this lady was one of those types. She pushed her cart right up behind me, made a few comments that we all ignored about not having enough open registers, and that all of us are going to be here all day at this rate. Some time passes and we're all shuffling forward as the line moves up. The guy who is in front of the older woman is now next in line for his lane once the person in front of him finishes, and it's right about then that she starts spouting off her garbage. I hear the woman say to the man, "Excuse me, I'm in a big hurry. Would it be alright if I just went in front of you?" While she was saying this, she moved her cart up alongside his, grabbed grabbed the front of his cart and began to push the cart out of the way so she could get in front of him. Well, the guy looks at her without saying anything. He grabs the handle of his cart so that she can't push it any further to the side and takes a step forward so the front half of his cart is now between the two drink coolers on either side of the lane so her cart can't fit alongside his. And then he goes back to looking straight ahead without saying a word. And when he did this entitled Karen lost her mind. She started loudly demanding that he let her go in front of him, saying that she has more stuff and she has to get home. And when that doesn't work, she starts saying that he's disrespectful. She says to him, "It's ladies first, but please go right ahead." And she goes on and on without stopping. She had the attitude of a woman who had rarely, if ever, been told no in her life and was handling it about as well as you would expect. Well, this guy once again didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out his AirPod case, and put both of his AirPods into his ears. Then he took out his phone and very slowly and deliberately slid the volume bar on his screen to maximum. Then he went back to staring straight ahead without saying a word. The entitled Karen complained at him for another minute or two until she finally noticed that he couldn't hear her. Then she went back to making snarky comments at his back while the guy's stuff was being rung up. The guy paid for his stuff and left without ever glancing at her, and she was absolutely seething the entire time. So honestly, that guy was my hero. He never even tried to argue with her and instead shut her down and went about his day. And I'm still honestly incredibly impressed. Wow, I can't believe that people actually act like this at a grocery store. Like seriously, if you have stuff to do and you're really in that much of a rush, then going to the grocery store is not the best thing for you to do. Like if this was actually an emergency, you would push your groceries to the side and run out the door. So of course she was lying and being like, "Oh, I've got to get ahead of you. I've got so many things to do." And it's just like, no, that's not happening. You're just being super entitled and you want to try and force your way through to the front of the line. Like everybody else waited their turn, so why can't this entitled Karen do the same? And you know what? If I have 50 items in my cart and I see someone who has like 2 or 3, then I will absolutely let them cut ahead of me and do whatever they want to do. But if they have an equal number of items as me, then there's no way they're going to cut in front of me. Like that's not going to happen and I'm not going to waste my time. So good for this guy for not responding, because I think that part alone is what drove this entitled Karen nuts. She clearly wanted some kind of argument and this guy did not give it to her. And that, in my opinion, is the best part about this entire interaction. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for being upset with my sister's family as they always come over to my house and let their kids run wild all over the place? Because right now, my wife is very mad at me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife has her siblings over for dinner every single week. She has 2 brothers and 2 sisters, but only one of them is married with kids. And trust me, these kids are not parented at all. Many times we have to stop a child from seriously injuring themselves because their parents just forget that they exist. Well, tonight I bought a cake for my wife's birthday that is next week. And this is because I will be leaving town for work and missing the date, but I still wanted to celebrate in some kind of way. Well, the oldest child, who's like 6 years old, he starts literally pounding the floor full-blown temper tantrum mode that I won't let him carry the cake lit with candles to the table. So I just ignored him and proceeded to carry it myself. After cutting the cake and bringing my wife her piece, the little brat jumps up and smashes his toy truck down in the middle of it. I get my wife another, but she just eats around it and says she doesn't mind. So I just brush it off. Minutes later, their third kid, who is a toddler, is seen running through my great room with a spoon full of icing that his mom gave him. And the middle child is using an egg roller as a missile and smashing it into my walls. Now, my wife just permits this anarchy, so I keep my mouth shut as usual. After the circus leaves our house, I'm cleaning up and doing dishes by myself. My wife then walks in and she lets out a sigh of relief that they are gone. Now, this is when I made the mistake of venting to my wife about how frustrated I am that her sister, her husband, and children have literally zero respect for our home. Well, her response was a rage-filled screaming match about how absolutely terrible I am and that she will make sure her sister's family is never present when I'm home. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for voicing my frustrations? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I do not think you're the jerk at all. I think the way her family was acting was incredibly disrespectful. And the fact that these kids were running around and your wife was okay with it, like that's insane in my opinion. Like they were running all over the place and destroying the birthday cake, as well as throwing things across the room against the wall. Like I don't know about you, but I would not want that to happen in my house. That's super disrespectful and there is no good excuse. use. So no, you are not the jerk for voicing your frustration, and I think your wife's response to your frustration is completely blown out of proportion. If anything, she probably knows the truth, but she's in complete denial. She probably feels the exact same way you do, but you said it first. And in my opinion, I think you have every right to feel that way because their behavior was absolutely awful. My awful new landlords are increasing my rent in a way that honestly is completely unfair, treating me like garbage and making me pay way more money than I'm comfortable with. But I'm honestly so glad I was able to get some revenge and force them to pay for all the injustices they put upon my shoulders. Here's what happened. Back in 2008, during the housing crisis, I did some work on the side for a customer's computer system. We got to talking and he had a cheap one-bedroom duplex for rent that was simply too good to be true. It was a detached garage converted to a one-bedroom little apartment, and it was as plain and basic as they come. The actual house was being rented out, and he was charging the full amount price for the area, so this little garage conversion was pure profit for the landlord. I signed a lease for a fixed price that was almost half of what the going rate was for a one-bedroom apartment in the area. It had no frills and was plain as can be with the cheapest appliances possible. Light fixtures were from the early 80s, and this place had the cheapest faucets and countertops that money could buy. The elderly landlord and I had an arrangement. I could fix it up so long as I could keep the rent low, and he would allow me to pay for the remaining balance on upgrades if and when things broke. Well, years go by and I'm still in this one-bedroom garage conversion and making progress on updating the features. The kitchen faucet is gone, and in its place is a new fancy sprayer head faucet with a bar-style glass cleaner installed on the side. The old toilet was replaced with a water-saving tank, and a bidet was installed. And on top of that, the 80s lights were gone, and an LED smart home fixture was installed. Around 7 to 8 years go by, and my rent is still half of the normal going rate for the area, and my landlord is happy with our arrangement. Sadly, he has a heart attack, but surgery saves his life. And because of that, he is no longer able to maintain his active lifestyle and hands the reins of being a landlord to a property management company. Now, this company is as shady and money hungry as they come, and they get a percentage of the monthly rent for their role in taking over the landlord's duties. They immediately hate me and my rental agreement from the start. The month they took over, my rent goes up the maximum limit of 10% on top of the 5% the cost of living increased over the year. Now, I'm not happy with this as this is a significant bump in my cost, so I decide to suck it up. But as a silent protest, I stop making upgrades to the house that first year. 12 months later exactly, I get a notification that my rent will increase another 10% plus 5% more for cost of living increase. This is yet another blow to my finances, but I can't really complain as my rent is still well below the average cost of the area. Another 12 months go by and another 15% essentially goes up, followed by another one the following year. Now, this entire time, I had been saving a good portion of my paychecks as a down payment for a house, but these rent hikes were hurting my ability to set aside money for this purpose. My landlord was not happy with the property management company that he hired, but he couldn't get out of the contract because they were doing maintenance and facility repairs like clockwork. Well, COVID hits and I had been in this place for 12 years by this point. My rent was still under the average for the area, but not by much. Seeing as this was now just a crappy one-bedroom apartment, I was looking for houses to buy to get me out of this rent gouging arrangement that I was in. Right at the peak of the COVID scare in 2020, a pipe burst in the kitchen and flooded the floors, ruining the crappy cabinets, the carpets, and the furniture I had nearby. I had renter's insurance that covered most of the cost of what I had lost, and while it wasn't the nicest furniture, my couch was a total loss, with my desk, my entertainment center, and my speaker also being severely damaged. Well, in comes the property management to assess the repairs and to gut out the damaged wood and carpets. I offered to pay for upgraded wood and countertops, as well as request hardwood floors, but nope, they completely denied my request. I offered to do the work myself as I'm fairly handy, and yet again, I was denied, but this time they gave me an actual written letter stating that I'm not to do any work or maintenance on the apartment. I contact my landlord, who has his hands tied because this was the arrangement that we had, and at this point, I'm at a loss of what to do because this property management company is not setting me up with a temporary place to live. They're doing all the work while I'm working from home to watch my possessions. There is literally a door-size hole in my wall as they spend 2 weeks fixing everything. Then they started doing stuff that I honestly didn't expect. They threw out my upgraded faucet, which was undamaged and worked perfectly fine by the way, as well as the upgraded sink, the light fixtures, and the tile work that I had done, as well as the bathroom faucet, which wasn't even part of the floor damage. They then removed an outlet which was originally family part of the apartment to save on cost. I was so mad at them, and I complained via letters, via phone calls, and talking to the maintenance supervisor. It took 2 months to do all the repairs, and at the end, they sent me a notice that my rent was going up due to some loophole they had, stating there was neglect in the apartment that I didn't report. Now, I was done with their BS, and I pulled my resources. I called in the favors that I could, and I found the house that I wanted. I gave them a 30-day notice to leave at the end of my lease, along with an invoice of all the repairs I made to the apartment over the 12 years I was there. I attached a copy of my original lease agreement, a copy of all photos I took of before and after repairs I made, a bill of how much I paid, and a request of a refund of the past 6 months of additional rent hikes due to this supposed neglect like they stated in the letter. I had a running tally of all the receipts, as well as the work performed and the cost of not being allowed to live in a motel during the work, and this totaled to about $9,700. At the same time, I submitted all of this to the courts as I knew they would contest all of it. My landlord was on my side during the court hearing and was even giving testimony that he in fact allowed me in the rental lease agreement that I could do my own repairs. Well, I won within 4 hours and was awarded $4,700 as the judge removed all billable hours that I included. The judge was harsh to the lawyer for the property management, saying his client must obey the law and put the tenant up for housing during the construction. Nearly 4 years later, I finally got my lump sum, including penalties and late fees, which totaled to about $7,500. Sadly, my old landlord passed away, and his properties passed to his son, who immediately fired the property management company sometime earlier last year. And I'm honestly so glad that something good came out of that awful living environment. Wow, those people seriously had it out for you. Like, why would they have such a problem with you fixing up the place, all in exchange for like lower rent? You and the former landlord agreed to this. Like, it's so unfair for them to come in all of a sudden and start increasing the rent, almost as if they're retaliating against you for having a good deal. But thankfully, you were able to get some revenge because this property management company was absolutely awful, and the way they treated you was absolutely unfair. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that I won't be inviting her to my wedding simply because I don't agree with her choice of a +1? Here's what happened. My sister and I, who are both 28 years old, are half-siblings who were raised by our mother, but we have different fathers. Our childhood was not a good one, and our relationship has always been very complicated. The biggest reason is how bad our mother was and how we were raised in a very toxic house, but also because sometimes the men our mother would bring to meet us would show more interest in me than in her, and it made my sister very jealous. There were also some messed up things done by our mother regarding our fathers that created several issues. We never knew these guys, so it was easy for our mother to dangle ideas in front of us as kids just to provide herself with some kind of entertainment. Now, I wasn't a great guy in my teens. I had a lot of girlfriends and very much had a reputation for not being great to the girls I was with. One particular ex of mine, we will call Emily, that's not her real name, is someone I dated for 2 months, and I broke things off with her because I wanted another girl more. But Emily grew way more attached to me than any of the others and was hurt that I didn't want her, and I was kind of a jerk about it at the time. It was a big deal to her, and for the next year until graduation, she would try to get me back, and I was a lot crueler than I needed to be about saying no. Now, something that helped me grow as a person and be a better human was my sister finding our grandparents and finding good people who wanted to know us. That, alongside with growing up in college, really helped me, and by the time I was 25, I had realized that I was bisexual with a stronger attraction to guys. And part of my issues stemmed from self-hatred that my mother drilled into me because she was grossly homophobic, and I ended up falling in love with an amazing guy. About a year ago, my sister ended up becoming friends with Emily, and she brought her to dinner at our grandparents once when my fiance and I were there. Now, Emily was pissed to see me, and while I did apologize, Emily needed to be asked to leave by our grandparents because she was ranting and raving at me and expressing very clearly how messed up it was that I ended up with a guy instead of her, and about the way I treated her. Now, my sister wasn't that happy about our grandparents kicking Emily out of the house, and they told her that she disrespected me and that I'm family. Now, Emily still despises me, and my sister has stayed in touch with her, and Emily has tried to contact me and my fiance ever since that dinner. Fast forward, and I found out a while ago that my sister planned to make Emily her +1 for my wedding, and I told her I did not want that and it didn't seem appropriate. My sister actually told me that I didn't get to decide her +1. We bickered over it, and it all resulted in a week ago of me telling my sister that I would not be inviting her to my wedding. Well, my sister said said that I was being just as much of a jerk as I was back then, and that it is awful that I'm not going to invite her over her choice of a +1. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all in this situation. Like, don't get me wrong, the way you treated Emily was really messed up, and I think there's only so much you can do for trying to fix that situation. But in my opinion, if you allow your sister to bring Emily to your wedding, Emily will 100% ruin everything. Like, seriously, just look at the way she acted during dinner. Do you really think she won't try to do something at your wedding just like she did at that dinner at your grandparents' house? Like, she obviously doesn't care about embarrassing herself in front of everybody. Who's to say she wouldn't do that in the middle of your wedding? Like, I can see her standing up when the priest is like, "Is there anyone who has an objection?" and then stopping all the progress for your wedding right then and there. So I don't blame you for a second for saying, nope, you're not coming along if you're bringing Emily. And also, it really seems like your sister is only doing this because she wants to get back at you in some kind of way. Like, it really seems like she's doing this out of spite, and so she can make sure that your wedding does not go as planned. And in my opinion, that is more than enough reason to say that you don't want her to show up at your wedding. I'm in the process of getting a better job, and right now, I'm struggling to find the best way to quit my current job without burning any bridges. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so basically up until the last week, my manager has not liked me very much. I've been here for 3 months, and they've already implied that they're gonna fire me once on the basis that I apparently wasn't bussing other people's tables, which is completely false. They have never told me good job, but instead just given me criticism, and they also started scheduling me less than 3 days a week. But recently, as of this week, there was a bump in my shift to 5 days a week with a double. I was also brand new to restaurant serving when I started, so I think I'm doing pretty well. I haven't had a single order or a drink sent back, and the only time someone complained to a manager was because they ordered sides with a dish that didn't come with sides and then complained that they were charged for them. I have been getting better at not getting weeded out and have recently been able to handle my section being full with no issues. And I've even gotten better with the check splitting of large groups. So anyways, 2 servers recently quit, and all of a sudden they're being nice to me. They're not throwing as much criticism at me, and they're talking to me more like an adult. But they still have their friends that they still treat better than me. But even though the manager's attitude towards me has gotten better, I'm still not happy with the money or the hours. And I know there is no way for me to get out of doing lunch shifts because I don't have an excuse like going to school, which is something that 80% of the other employees do. The place I'm interviewing at only does dinner, so there's no possibility of early shifts. And I've heard great things about the money there. Plus, they allow their staff to have piercings and tattoos, which I would love to be able to wear my septum piercing again. Plus, I know 2 of the managers, so I feel like I will be more comfortable and secure there. My interview is on Wednesday, and I'm scheduled at my restaurant for the rest of the week. Like I said, since 2 people quit, they buffed my schedule back up, and now I have more dinner shifts. I think they just don't want another server to quit, so that's why they're being nice, to be completely honest. If I'm hired, I would like to start training immediately, but it's sort of difficult to get people to take shifts, and I don't have the money to pay people to take them. I would like to actually keep the lunch shift during my training so that I have some sort of tip income during that time. So what I don't want to happen is me giving my 2 weeks notice, telling them that I can work lunches during that time, and them just taking me off the schedule. Alternatively, I don't want to just dip out and then not be able to use them on my job history. I don't want to burn the bridge because we live in this area, and everyone knows everyone in the industry here. But if it comes down to that, I have to prioritize myself and not the restaurant. I guess if I need to get shifts covered this week and I can't, I will just have to call out, which I haven't done yet at this job. So does anyone know the best way to go about doing this? I have told 2 to 3 other employees that I'm applying elsewhere, and one of those employees has already quit, citing that he hates this place. But other than that, I'm fairly certain that the manager will be taken by surprise. I'm honestly so lost, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, but honestly, you can do this either way, and I think it will be completely fine. Even if you just suddenly said, hey, I'm quitting, you really can still use them on your job history. And if that relationship with that restaurant really is that important, then just put your 2 weeks notice in and say exactly what you said. You can say, hey, I can do my 2 weeks notice, but I can only work lunches. Like, that's the best thing for your schedule, and that's the best way you can help them out. And then you literally just go from there. Like, these people are not your friends, they're coworkers. And thankfully, you saw through exactly the way they're treating you. They're only being nice to you because suddenly they need you. And in my opinion, based on what you've described, you absolutely deserve to work at some place that's better than this. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.